Hey, hey, silly hippo, taste this. Rose proudly lifted her broomstick as a purple crystal emerged from the middle of it. Magic missile. 130 centimeters long purple missile after another shot out from the little witch's broomstick. Regardless of size or release speed, they were far more powerful than common magic missiles. This was no more intuitive difference between witch and magician. With the same 100 mana, a magician could release about 10 magic missiles, while the little witch Rose could release 100 magic missiles. What's more, her magic missile not only had 3 times the flying speed, but also had 3 times the attack power. Boom, 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 boom. The crisp sound of explosions burst on the green hippo's body one after another. Hundreds of large magic missiles hit its body in a second as a purple halo spread like fireworks. This was the little witch Rose's masterpiece, multiple magic missiles. If it was a common third-ranked green hippo, it would have been blown to pieces already. However, the mutant green hippo was clearly far stronger than other green hippos. Although its thick skin was being pitted by the magic missiles, there was no fatal wound. Whoa, it's a foul to be so thick. Rose looked at the green hippo with a little headache. This fellow is too strong. Did it eat something strange? Mordred complained. As a top-ranked mortal hunting team, this wasn't the first time for them to hunt a green hippo. The green hippo was only slightly injured by Rose's magic missiles. Theoretically, that shouldn't have happened. Rose had devoted almost all her energy to the practice of magic missiles. Her attack power should far surpass the defensive power of any hero-ranked monster's skin. Lancelot, be careful. It's going to go mad. Along with Mordred, Alexander protected Rose while she leaves. Boom. The injured green hippo kicked a big stone towards them. The several tons of stone flew like a ball under the feet of the green hippo. Just as witches' magic talents were far stronger than mortals, the green hippo's strength was also at the top of all third-ranked monsters. Even though the green hippo's body was too large and its speed was too slow, the green hippo was still one of the most formidable monsters in the third rank. Its thick skin could make many people feel helpless. As a monster who had left a particularly painful memory for Yunshi in the Star Trial, this monster was not friendly at all. When it rushed at them rampaging, it was like a heavy tank that could crush everything. Are you okay? Yunshi watched the green hippo and felt worried for the small team. It doesn't matter. Believe us, if we can't even beat a green hippo down, we will feel ashamed of ourselves. Lancelot wiped her sweat and raised her bayonet. That's right. We're going to play here. Mordred removed the tower shield from behind her and entered a full-armed form. No matter how violent the monster is, without wisdom, it's only a target being hunted. Alexander whistled, dismantled her scepter, and revealed her chain sword. My magic missile can be more powerful. Rose pouted and rubbed the purple crystal, and then grasped the broomstick with both hands. Even though they were facing the mutant green hippo who had gone mad, the 3 knights still took the initiative to attack. Sometimes, the best defense is to attack. In the face of such a super monster, being blindly defensive was not feasible. They must orient the situation to their own advantage. Hey! Mordred raised her tower shield and provoked it. Come on, you mindless monster. Come at me. Huh. With a roar, the furious green hippo rushed directly towards Mordred with thunderous footsteps. Chance! Alexander whipped the chainsword and hit the green hippo from 10 meters away. The strange chain sword tore a big hole in the wound caused by Rose's magic missile, causing the green hippo to bleed endlessly. A half-meter-long wound was a fatal wound for humans, but for a mutant green hippo, it was just a scratch and made it more ferocious. The fierce green hippo was getting faster, and the huge stone club in its hand gave them a strong feeling of pressure. You shall not pass. Putting the tower shield into the ground, Mordred took a deep breath and contracted all her muscles. Boom! The green hippo's stone club directly deformed Mordred's tower shield, and even Mordred herself was stunned by the sparks that flew before her eyes. But even though Mordred's hands were bleeding, she still firmly held the shield and withstood the attack and didn't take a step back. Shuffle! Alexander's chain sword was thrown again from an almost impossible angle and hit on the green hippo's body. Right now, Lancelot held an armor-piercing sword and appeared behind the green hippo again, hitting the green hippo with her powerful strength. The sharp armor-piercing sword penetrated the green hippo's buttocks and punctured through its intestines. Looking at Lancelot's move, Yuan she felt like clenching his buttocks. That must be painful. It's so fast, so accurate, so cruel. Mujie. The green hippo uttered a sad scream, and the big club in its hand thundered heavily on the ground. Jump! The three knights leaped backward together. Rose's magic trap was triggered. Boom! The ground beneath the green hippo collapsed without warning, and the magic trap was launched perfectly. This wasn't a simple trap, but a chain trap. When the green hippo fell down and hit the ground, it was bombed by a flame bomb first, then attacked by frost. In such a situation, even the green hippo's thick skin that neither swords nor spears could stab became fragile. At the same time, being protected by the three knights, Rose was finally ready for her ultimate skill. Magic Missile Storm. Compared with the multiple magic missiles just now, the performance of the Magic Missile Storm was much more exaggerated. The number of magic missiles released this time was 3,000. This is a number that can make all mortal magic apprentices feel helpless. Moreover, Rose didn't just use the Magic Missile Storm one time, but 3 times. A total of 9,000 magic missiles. If this was a battlefield, the magic missile storms could eliminate an entire army in an instant. In the face of such horrible large-scale attack magic, the army of mortals was no different from rice straws waiting to be mowed. The magnificent magic missile storm first crossed the distance of hundreds of meters within 3 seconds, then all hit on the green hippo's body. Boom, 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 boom. Like a symphony of death, 9,000 magic missiles were bombarded on the green hippo's huge body, and it never stood up again. Yay, we win. Rose's magic missile storm is awesome. The green hippo is dead. Lancelot, Mordred, and Alexander cheered. No matter how many times they looked at it, Rose's magic missile storm was always so exaggerated. 3 rounds of 3,000 magic missiles. It was probably the strongest attack mortals could perform. A mutant green hippo was nothing in front of such an attack. That's terrific. Even Yunshi felt that the attack was a little too exaggerated. It was absolutely the strongest magic he had ever seen. Because of the limitations of flesh and blood, most mortals could only perform magic tricks such as sleight of hand and luminous gaze. Only after stepping into the hero rank could one perform the extraordinary power of magic or sword skill. This was common sense to everyone. It was almost impossible for human beings to perform such horrible magic in the mortal rank. Hey, there's nothing in the world that magic missiles can't solve. Rose cleaned her hat and proudly raised her chest. If 1 magic missile is not enough, then I will use 1,000 magic missiles. If 1 round is not enough, then I will perform the magic for 3 rounds, 10 rounds. Among all magic, Rose's favorite was magic missile. She could shoot with her eyes closed without aiming. With the increase of her proficiency, she could shoot faster and more accurately, and the power of each shot could also be increased indefinitely. The art of magic missiles was the world Rose was intoxicated with. She had a dream that one day her magic missile skills could reach the realm of God. The green hippo was first burned, then frozen, and finally brutally murdered by 9,000 magic missiles. The green hippo's body lost its breath at the bottom of the magic trap, and the huge stone club rolled aside. It's finally dead. Lancelot threw several pebbles at the green hippo and confirmed that it had died. It's a heavy stone club. Mordred jumped into the trap and picked up the giant stone club, grabbing the tail of the club with both hands. Yay! We completed the test of the Starwing Knights. Alexander laughed. My magic missile is the first in the world. Rose raised her broomstick and waved it proudly. Just then, the mutant green hippo, whose whole body had been pierced and its heart exploded, suddenly stood up. What? Lancelot opened her eyes wide. She confirmed that the green hippo had died. Why could it stand up again? Impossible. Mordred dropped the club and stood instinctively in front of Rose to protect her. Why? Alexander swung her chain sword, trying to block any counterattacks from the green hippo. Rose let out a scream and fired another 100 magic missiles. But this time, the magic missiles passed directly through the green hippo as if they had infiltrated a gel. In front of the four, the green hippo's body began to twist and melt, revealing its true face. It was a mass of transparent, green jelly-like substances or life. Slime, slime, slime. The three knights recognized the real identity of the thing at a glance. Wow, it's a mutant giant slime, not a mutant green hippo. Yunshi jumped down from the coconut tree immediately, but unfortunately, he was still a step late. The giant green slime, after transforming back to its original shape, immediately spewed out a large amount of solution. The sticky green solution shot at the knights and magic team and glued them all together. "We are finished." Lancelot was distressed. What a fatal mistake this was. What's wrong with this slime? Mordred was equally helpless, and her strength couldn't do anything in the face of the green solution. No way. Alexander looked at her clothes with tears in her eyes. Her knight's armor was melting. Whoop whoop, what's wrong with this slime? Why can't the magic missiles hurt it? Rose burst into tears as her pointed hat was been eaten by the green slime. The girl's skin was exposed little by little in front of Yunshi. T-slime was one of the weakest monsters in the food chain of all gods' domains. Except for their super adaptability that could survive in any environment, they were good for nothing. If we take the standard value of an adult man's strength as 5, then a slime's strength was not even more than 1. Even a child could bully a slime, and it has no power to fight back. Slow speed moving and low attack power. Main food is various decaying organic matter. Most slimes were extremely weak. Very few mutant slimes could develop special abilities. The slime that appeared in front of the knights and magic team was such a special case of 1 in a billion. Lancelot's sword, Mordred's shield, Alexander's scepter. 3 high-quality weapons were melted in a few seconds by the solution of the slime. It was probably not with the acid in its body, because no acid could melt their weapons so quickly. It was a kind of devouring talent, just like Rose's magic talent. This was the slime's special ability. However, it seemed that this ability was only activated by inorganic substances, so although their weapons, armor, and clothes were dissolved, Lancelot, Mordred, and Alexander weren't injured and just being bound by this strange solution, unable to move. When their armor was completely melted, the girls' skins were completely exposed. Lancelot had a perfect figure, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Beneath her slender, soft neck were round and smooth shoulders. With fullness in her chest, her waist showed a perfect curve. Because of regular physical exercise, her buttocks were beautiful and smooth. Together with snow-white slender legs, even if they were closed vigorously, Yunshi could also vaguely see the girl's paradise. No, Yunshi, stop. You can't look at it. Even so, his man's instinct was uncontrollable. After struggling, he laboriously moved his eyes away from Lancelot. Compared with Lancelot's jade-like skin with a sense of sanctity and inviolability, Mordred's well-trained body was strong and powerful, full of healthy beauty. Even though she was half-bent, her lower abdomen showed no excess fat. The muscles in her waist and abdomen fluctuated like waves. The curves of her thighs were exquisite and delicate. She opened her arms in front of Rose with a firm look on her face. Even in such an embarrassing situation, she didn't forget to be the shield of the little witch. Alexander was also standing in front of Rose like a shield. Her flaxen braids slightly covered her naked body, but also made her curves more prominent. Her skin was neither the pure white of Lancelot's skin nor the healthy color of Mordred's skin, but a color between them, emitting a special tropical temptation. However, after losing all their clothes, the biggest change happened on the little witch, who had been desperately hiding her secret. She really had magic in her chest. It was a bandage engraved with mysterious runes, which almost completely wrapped the little witch's whole chest. The magic of the bandage tightly bound the little witch's chest, so no one could find out the real size of the little witch's breasts. It was not until this moment that the bandage melted under the slime solution that Yunshi really knew why Hua Yu would specifically notify him about them in the little witch's information. Too big. She did not imagine that the little witch, whose height only reached his waist, would have such a magnificent chest. That pair of snow-white rabbits were so beautiful that it shook his eyes and heart. Only when the bandage was melted off did the lovely rabbits rush out of bondage and move about in the wind. Not only the shape was perfect, but also the feel was absolutely first class from the beautiful curve. If we average the fighting power of common noble girl's chest measurement at 3,000, then Lancelot's fighting power was 5,000. Alexander's is about 6,000, and Mordred's about 8,000. As for Rose, her fighting capability is absolutely over 10,000. Even in all the Starwing Knights, probably only Hua Yu and Ling Ling were bigger than her. From the viewpoint of growth, she could certainly become a great witch in the future. No wonder that even Hua Yu was shocked and accepted her application of joining the Starwing Knights. The potential of this small team was really great, especially the little witch Rose. Whether it was her battle talent or chest measurement, she could cause most of the girls of the Starwing Knights to feel despair. So round, so slippery, so white, so sturdy, even the pair of pink buds were flawless, like the world's most beautiful works of art. Whoa! The little witch Rose held her pair of tall and round white rabbits in her arms, rippling out a fascinating arc as her body trembled. Her white face turned burning red and her cherry-like mouth was half open and half closed. So lovely when she cried. No, it's a crime if I continue to look at this scene. She drew out the twin swords from his back and rushed towards the mutant slime like the wind. When the emerald slime noticed She's move, it spat out a large amount of transparent solution again. Don't use the same skill twice. She wouldn't repeat the same mistake the Knights and Magic team made. His body flipped in the air and flew directly to the slime's head. The twin swords flashed. He used Flying Swallow Sword, which was Hua's proudest sword skill. Flying Swallow tenfold attack. The mutant slime's huge body was instantly cut into dozens of jellies, like being cut by a fruit knife. But in the next instant, the fragments of the slime's body ejected more solutions, shooting overwhelmingly towards Shi. Shi quickly flew higher to avoid this wave of evil solution. He didn't want to test whether his clothes would melt when they met the solution. Even if his clothes wouldn't melt, he didn't want his body to be covered with the solution. For creatures living on the ground, species that can attack from the air are like cheaters. If I could use Rose's magic missiles, I would be able to completely destroy these fragments in a flash. Shi thought so and brandished his sword again. After 3 rounds of solution spraying, the slime finally became exhausted. The dozens of fragments of its body began to squirm together, trying to merge and become one again. Separation and combination were also one of the slime's special abilities. This giant slime was obviously an elite above all elites. However, when it met Shi who could fight in the sky, it encountered its natural enemy. Shi once fought against the Child of Slime, Shea Longness the Sky Sword in the Water God's world. Naturally, he knew the weaknesses of slimes very well. They had extremely low mobility. Even if they had extraordinary powers, they were easy to deal with if nobody controlled them. It was precisely because of such fatal defects that the slime race yearned for the birth of their god. Only under the control of Shea Longness did the slime race have the potential for war. This giant slime was apparently a survivor who escaped from the Water God's world after the final war. Flying Swallow. The twin swords chopped down. Without solution spraying, and the giant slime wasn't strong enough to digest the twin swords, it was cut up bit by bit until finally, Shi found its core. It was a small, soft, and elastic gemstone, only about the size of a pebble, and had the same color as the slime's body. If it weren't for Shi's rich experience and familiar hand feel, he wouldn't have found the gemstone that was quietly shrinking and trying to hide. It's you. Familiar hand feel, familiar elasticity, familiar temperature. Shi seemed to have returned to the Water God's world, returning to the time he caught green slimes everywhere together with K on the island. This slime's special ability was to devour equipment but not eat people. The mutant green hippo was actually just the green slime's host body. After the death of the green hippo, the slime took its original form and instinctively began to devour their equipment to supplement its lost vitality, as Yunxi naturally understood when he gained the slime's core. Speaking of this, he and slimes did have an indissoluble bond. In the water god's world, he once had a special slime bracelet, which was later taken away by Shea Longness the Sky Sword, but now he obtained it again. Yes, the slime's core in Yunxi's hands now was the original prototype of the slime bracelet in the water god's domain. It seemed that Shea Longness' aura had disappeared completely. It had become a common slime who wandered around this strange coast, and in order to survive, it parasitized the green hippo's body. The knights and magic team did kill the mutant green hippo, but lost to the giant slime, who was once a fragment of Shea Longness the Sky Sword. Although it had become smaller, Yunxi still felt the familiar when kneading and pinching it. We've had bad luck. Why does this place have such a mutant slime that doesn't exist in any records? Mordred complained and wiped her body. Because no one knows, so it's called an accident. Alexander untied her braids. Her long flaxen hair hung down to her waist, her long legs folded together, and she was lazily basking in the sun. I feel that this thing can't be so simple. Lancelot washed her beautiful long blonde hair and smelt herself. 3 naked girls. Summer sun. Gold, flaxen, snow white, black, all kinds of colors. Why are you so defenseless? Aren't you noble girls from famous big families? She turned his back to the 3 knights and kept kneading and pinching the green slime in his hands. Whoa, my bandage dissolved. What do I do? Without that, my sisters will kill me. Crouched up in her spare robe which she just put on, Rose had a helpless look on her face as if she just saw the end of the world. Is that bandage so important? She asked with curiosity. Well, that's my most precious magic item. My sisters told me that I should never take that bandage off, or many people would come to kill me, especially witches. My sisters have always warned me that I should never take off the bandage in front of other witches before I had become a great witch. Otherwise, something very horrible would happen. Oh, I see. Is it jealousy? If the other witches could see the size of her breasts, they would kill her out of jealousy. Sure enough, even amongst witches, Rose's talent is at the superclass. If Huayu was right, the bigger the breasts were, the higher the magic power the witch could have, then the little witch Rose's talent was super. Fortunately, no matter how strong their talents were, they couldn't be stronger than Hua. In this case, Yunxi could accept the appearance of geniuses. Don't worry, the Starwing Knights will accept you. No one will be jealous of you. After needing his trophy again, Yunxi made a decision. At the same time as Yunxi made his choice, the 3 night girls finally put on their spare clothes and came out of the sea. May, come here. May, the temperature here is moderate. May, please wash Rose clean. They looked at Yunxi and the little witch with meaningful eyes. Yunxi wanted to shout, "How can you be so defenseless and take a bath in front of me? Why do I have to comfort the little witch Rose and help her wash her body? The world is so strange." Whoa. Rose was still crying sadly. She was curled up in her spare big magic robe like a rabbit hiding in her hole. Next to her, the 3 girls who had put on their knight armor were comforting the little witch. Rose, it's not your fault. It's because the slime was too strong. Your magic missile is still the best. Let's slaughter the dragon and conquer the world together in the future. Rose still sobbed. Her hands clasped around her huge chest, which was totally out of line with her body shape. It was too big and too heavy for her petite body. It wasn't a problem when she was wrapped in the bandage, because the bandage had a special magic power which could greatly reduce the weight and cover the size of her breasts. Now, the bandage was eaten by the slime, and the little witch, Rose, felt wrong all over. In the past, only when she took a bath with Lancelot, Mordred, and Alexander would she untie the bandage. Apart from the bathing time, she would never untie the bandage. For her, the bandage had almost become a part of her body. They are so heavy. Oh, May, take her to the bath. Just wash Rose clean, and she'll regain her confidence. We'll find a way to find a new bandage for Rose. The 3 night girls looked at Yunxi with an expression, "Great hero, please save the world," on their faces. So why do you ask me to take care of Rose so naturally? What's more, She looks so small, but has such a pair of plump fruits. I can barely preserve my sanity. Hurry up. Go. Take care of Rose. Let's prepare a new bandage for Rose. May, don't be hesitant. You can do it. The three girls pushed the little witch to Yunxi and didn't give him any chance to refuse. Well, Rose, Yunxi really has little experience in caring for such a young child. What's more, it's such a big-breasted child. It's really a crime. Whoa. Does May dislike me? I lost to the slime, so I can't join the Starwing Knights? Rose looked at Yunxi with tears in her eyes and despair on her face. Looking at her crying face, Yunxi could not say the word no. All right. Yunxi felt that this was fate. The girl asked him to take a bath, and he couldn't expose his gender and identity. What else can he do? I'm desperate too. Whoa. Rose shrugged her nose, and her little face flushed with shame. A child needs only a kiss and a hug to recover quickly. Knowing this, the three night girls gave Rose to Yunxi without hesitation. They would not have thought that the black-haired maid's true identity was an energetic 16-year-old boy. Looking at Rose's scarlet face and shy eyes, his heart couldn't help but beat faster. Take the little witch to the beach and try not to look at her body. Yunxi quickly took off her broad magic robe and the time to suffer began. The girl's white body had soft, tender skin. The pair of huge peaks floated in the water with a fatal temptation. Of course, Yunxi didn't see it with his eyes, because he had actively shielded his vision and began to learn how to use breathing to sense the air around him. It's the last resort. If he opened his eyes at this time, he would be a real criminal. Nevertheless, his hands still inadvertently touched places he should not touch. In the clear seawater, the full peaks were tender like tofu and slippery like oil. With a gentle pinch on the belly of the finger, the fruit deformed freely in the palms. It was a tenderness that was enough to arouse the desire of the male animal, which made him feel pity for her, but also, he couldn't help wanting to ravage her again and again. Clearly there was no support, but this pair of peaks had no trace of falling, as firm as they had been cast magic. The lower edge and upper edge maintained a perfect arc, straight and sharp, perfect and incredible. Not only the shape, but also the touch was soft and delicate. Just a gentle pressure, it would sag down. Slightly, loosen the grip, and then it would bounce back. Even if he didn't see with his eyes, Yunxi could fill in the little witch Rose's white body and blushed face in his mind. This soft and delicate body leaned into his arms, the fragrance of her hair, as well as the snow-white delicate skin, all could be mastered with one hand. After taking off her shoes and socks, her snow-white feet were smooth and as tender as snow. What's more, the bared feet often trod on where they shouldn't tread, which made Yunxi feel suffocated. Although he closed his eyes, he could feel the elongated legs rubbing his unmentionable location with bared feet. The exquisite white feet with round ankles and toes moved and slid curiously around that area. Aho! At the seaside, there was a faint cry of despair from the big gray wolf who stayed alone with the little white rabbit. With great efforts, Yunxi had washed the tearful little witch clean. Why didn't I feel any problem when I washed Yili before? Sure enough, is it all because of that big pair of breasts? Or is it because after the night I spent with the dark elf girl, the world in my eyes had become different? Recalling the secret lesson the teacher had taught him that summer, Yunxi felt that his life would probably never go back to that age of innocence. Yili, I can't give you a bath in the future because my heart is not pure anymore. After realizing this, Yunxi felt that he had lost something important. As for the little witch, she was completely restored after bathing. I want to develop magic missiles that can destroy all slimes. Even if slimes can be magically immune, my magic missiles must be able to pierce through them. Rose had set a great goal for her life. She still firmly believed that there was no monster in the world that could not be killed by magic missiles. If not, develop more powerful magic missiles. Eventually, my mage missiles will be able to kill gods. Most witches are such obsessives. As long as they like one thing, they will chase it crazily to the end. They will never change their minds. Once they like something, they will not change their goal even after 1,000 years. For them, The first time of life is the most important, representing the deepest indelible memory. Take a woman named Black Tea Witch as an example. She has a special hobby for a certain taste of black tea. If she does not drink this kind of black tea every day, she will feel that life is meaningless. One day, the origin of this kind of black tea suffered a disaster of extinction, and all the tea plants were destroyed. Ordinary people could only accept the unfortunate truth helplessly. However, the witch didn't give up. Saddened by the disappearance of the origin of this black tea, she practiced the taboo time retrospective magic over and over again, tracing back to the earliest time when the black tea tree took root and sprouted, and then observed the environmental variables in the time record while nurturing the seeds of the black tea tree. Countless failures, countless starts from scratch, and all the records she wrote could be piled up in several rooms. Even in this case, she still didn't give up. Finally, after hundreds of years, she successfully reproduced her favorite black tea and became one of the greatest witches in the witch god's domain. This story tells people not to provoke witches. Once they get serious about anything, they are impossible to do anything with. Black tea witch's persistence in the taste of black tea is the same as Little Witch Rose's passion for magic missiles. Pafu. Pafu? Wrapped around Yunshi's wrist, the green slime made a curious sound and jumped up and down on Yunshi's wrist. Well, this is probably an unexpected pleasure. This green slime, who escaped from the water god's island, seems to have a little lower intelligence and will send out a lovely Pafu. Pafu. Voice. In view of this, Yunshi simply named it Pafu. Anyway, this slime was easy to feed. It could survive even if only absorbing the free magic in the air. With such a tenacious vitality, no wonder that the slime race can survive in all corners of the endless god's domains. One day, I will defeat all slimes. Looking at this emerald slime, who made her suffer great humiliation, Rose gnashed her teeth. Never had she lost so badly since she learned Magic Missile Storm. Pafu. Pafu? The slime was frightened and transformed back to the bracelet form, rolling into Yunshi's sleeve and hiding. Yunshi was slimed. The familiar touch returned. Sure enough, he seemed to be somewhat related to this type of slime. Well, the spare bandage is ready. It's not as good as the magic bandage, but it's okay to make use of it. Lancelot, the most ingenious of the three knights, came over with a brand new white bandage. Puff! It's so tight. Wrapping the white bandage around her big chest, Rose breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, this bandage could reassure her. Although Lancelot's bandage does not have the magic power to reduce the weight and size on her chest, just hiding the breasts that didn't fit her body shape could make Rose feel a sense of security. Oh, I really don't understand why my sisters like it so much and tell me that I can never let other witches know. It's clear that this thing has no other advantages besides storing great magic power. It can't be used as a magic missile. Very well, Rose. Are you satisfied? After binding Rose's beautiful breasts, which Lancelot admired so much, Lancelot hugged Rose. Thank you, Lancelot. Rose felt a familiar sense of tightness and a less pleasant sense of heaviness, but she could only tolerate it until she obtained a new magic bandage. At least, she didn't like to walk around in broad daylight with such a pair of huge and shameful things. It wasn't just because of her sister's words. She didn't like it herself. Yes, she was one of the few poor breast minority among witches. She thought that poor breasts are beautiful. Unfortunately, her will was contrary to fact, but she often participated in the secret meetings of the poor breast minority and was one of the senior staffers. The value of witches is not determined by their breasts. The little witch always thinks this way. I declare that your entrance test is over. Looking at the knights and magic team in front of him, Yunshi announced. Lancelot looked thoughtfully at the emerald slime bracelet on Yunshi's wrist and frowned. Pafu. Pafu. The slime recovered by Yunshi looked more lively and active than when it was the giant slime, and seemed to have no resistance to becoming a trophy. Well, this time, we were so unlucky to encounter such a rare mutant green hippo. Mordred was a little depressed. All of them were captured by the giant slime, and their armor, weapons, and even the broomstick Rose loved so much were eaten. That crystal on the broomstick was very expensive. Our preparedness was not enough. In fact, the slime still has weaknesses. Alexander carefully analyzed the situation. If they had been more alert, they would have been more cautious in trapping the green hippo. In this case, they could have escaped even if they couldn't win. The most terrible ability of the giant slime was to devour equipment, and it needed to launch it at close range. Even if Rose's magic missile storm couldn't break through the giant slime's defense, it was absolutely no problem to draw its attention at long distance. All three of them had committed the act of lowering their guard, although it was more or less because May was at their back. But after all, it was a mistake. I'll kill all slimes when I see them. Only dead slimes are good slimes. Rose gritted her teeth and swore to heaven as she watched the emerald slime on Yuanshi's wrist. Even she had listed the goal of eliminating slimes as her daily lesson for the next 300 years. Anyway, slime is everywhere. Killing more is good for the world. Pafu, Pafu. The slime was frightened by Rose's expression. It escaped into Yuanshi's clothes and became a heart-shaped necklace, pretending that it didn't know anything. The result of the entrance test is, Yuanshi hesitated for a moment, but finally he couldn't go against his own heart. You have passed. Sure enough, Lancelot showed a clear smile. She knew May would give this answer. Well, we have passed the test, but we lost. Mordred hadn't figured it out yet. Is it because we knocked down the mutant green hippo? Alexander guessed. Yes, your test was just to knock down the mutant green hippo. Rose has done it. The mutant giant slime is not included in the test. Yuanshi explained why they passed the test. He could deliberately embarrass them and prevent them from passing the test, but that was against his heart. Why, you must have known the result before sending me to see what kind of girls they are. Lancelot's perfect character. Mordred's concentration of power and her companion's character will never be abandoned in any adversity. Alexander's great vision, as well as Rose's witch talent. The members of the Knights and Magic team all have their own characteristics. With Rose as the core, this was a perfect team with extraordinary talent. Yuanshi couldn't even find a reason to refuse them joining. Finally, let me ask you once again, do you really know the meaning of joining the Starwing Knights? There is no exaggeration in what Hua Yu said. After joining the Starwing Knights, you can't quit. Yuanshi didn't know what kind of mood he was in now. Is he happy? Of course, after personal contact with the Knights and Magic team, he was quickly attracted to them. They all had excellent talents, and none of them were pampered noble girls. They are veterans of hunting monsters, from preparing their own equipment to driving a carriage and laying out traps. Everything they did was skillful. It would be a pity that such an excellent team would not be eligible to join the Starwing Knights. They are qualified to receive my blessings. I would like to join the Starwing Knights in order to be a better knight. Lancelot half knelt in front of Yuanshi and kissed his finger. I would like to join the Starwing Knights in order to be the strongest shield and sword. Mordred also half knelt before Yuanshi and kissed his finger. For the sake of world conquest, let me join the Starwing Knights. Alexander smiled and kissed Yuanshi's finger. May's taste is very comfortable. Rose became even more annoying after close contact with Yuanshi. Like is a lifetime. First love is the eternal love. Whether it is 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, the love of the witch will never change. Well, I am here to announce that you are officially part of the Starwing Knights. Yuanshi pinched his black hair with complicated expressions. Although he still had long hair, will he become bald one day if the members of the Starwing Knights continue to increase like this? With such confusion, Yuanshi pulled off 4 hairs and handed them to the 4 girls. The contract is established from this moment on. All the members of the Knights and Magic team finally got the blessing, which was also the certificate representing the qualification to join the Starwing Knights. Maybe it's also a curse. A curse named Becoming the Sword of May, which couldn't be dispersed and wouldn't dissipate. Chapter 636. The Witch's Blessing, Curse, that's the blessing. Lancelot solemnly took Yuanshi's black hair, which was as dark as night. This was the incredible miracle they were longing for. Beautiful hair. Mordred looked at her own hair with inferiority. Why is my hair so bad? She complained in her heart. May's legendary lucky charm. Alexander squinted her eyes, pinched the black hair, looked up and down, left and right, as if to see the mystery of the universe from the black hair. May, I like you the best, Rose cried out with joy filling her eyes. Everyone is an easy-to-understand girl. She quietly began to plant his seeds into the four girls' bodies. Soon he had a harvest. Like Hua Yu deduced, all the members of the Knights and Magic team had different extraordinary talents. Lancelot, weapon expert. Knights who possess this talent can use any weapon with ease. From daggers, sleeve swords to two-handed swords, they naturally understand how to use these weapons. Toughness. Her will is as strong as steel. She will never give up hope and hold on till the very last moment. Mordred, Berserker's bloodline. The more she was wounded, the more powerful her attacks could be. Using this talent, you will inevitably pay the price of losing reason. Keep patricide, like a cursed fate, there will inevitably be a war of life and death between her and her father, and no matter what happens, no one cannot prevent this fate. Alexander, King's Cavalry. The king's wish is to conquer the world. Any force that prevents this wish will be crushed by the king's cavalry. With this talent, she can even ride god-ranked fantastic creatures. King's Knights. The king can easily assemble loyal knights. They are the king's sword and shield, fighting for the king with no fear. Finally, it was the information of the little witch, Rose. Source of magic. You are naturally loved by the elements in the air. Elemental elves will come to you unconditionally and obey your orders. You can automatically master the skills of magic power reinforcement, magic compression, and magic capacity up. Witch's blessing, curse. Only the biggest-breasted witch can be the real great witch. Obtaining the contract from the mysterious great existence gives you a magic talent beyond everyone, and it also brings a terrible curse for you. The cursed witch can grow her chest only if she keeps growing stronger. She was shocked after reading the information of their talents from their seeds. Lancelot is a perfect incarnation of a paladin. The blood of Berserker and the talent Patricide revealed Mordred's tragedy. Oh, did Alexander have the gift of being a king? Rose's genius is Witch's blessing, curse. From this point of view, she can certainly become a great witch in the future. The three knights are all top-class geniuses. They can certainly break through the barrier of the hero rank with ease and will inevitably become heroes in tales and stories. The little witch's talent is even stronger. Even now, he could see a trace of the great witch from that size. Accepting Lancelot's talent from her seed, she instantly understood the method of use of dozens of weapons in his mind. Now, even if he had only one branch in his hand, he could use master-level martial arts. After accepting Mordred's talent, she felt some kind of blood roaring deep in his body. Once he paid the price of reason, he would obtain the strength that could let him fight even if he was seriously injured. It was a blood of madness that could let him move beyond his own limits. After sharing Alexander's talent, Yunshi's sense of the girls of the Starwing Knights suddenly became much stronger. All girls in the Starwing Knights, from their chests to their favorite food, from their favorite clothes to their current appearance, she could clearly feel them. This was May's Knights, the Knights of the Star Child. The wings of the stars exist for him. Finally, it was the little witch's terrible talent. Source of magic. She never practiced magic before, but instinctively he mastered the method to absorb the free magic in the air, and he had a feeling that he could directly perform the magic Rose knew, ignoring the long casting time mortal magicians would spend. Witch's blessing, curse. She was freaked out. He clearly felt that his chest was growing along with the growing of the magic power he was obtaining. How can this be possible? This is not realistic. Who can tell me what happened? She looked at his chest with a frightened look. What kind of joke is this? Why is the witch's blessing, curse, also coming into effect as my seed drew her talents? Calm down, Yunshi. You are not a girl. You are not a girl. You still have a big D *** K. There must be something wrong. Oh, what am I saying? I must be crazy. What a strange world. Fortunately, Yunshi stealthily used the breathing method he learned from Cassina the Sky Sword, and his chest quietly restored to its original state. Oh, fortunately, it's not a permanent curse. However, what happened had happened. Once it happened, something had been changed. Once it was recognized by the rules of the world, He would also be cursed, blessed, by the witch's curse, blessing. What's the matter with this curse? Yuan-shi quietly reached out his hand and pressed on his chest. Puff! Even if it was bound by the breathing method, the feel was still as perfect as if he was kneading the green slime bracelet. Clearly, there was nothing there, but he could still feel it with his hand. Pafu! Pafu! The lovely slime core was jumped directly onto Yuan-shi's chest, rolling around on the same kind as its own body. Yuan-shi stared at this lovely green slime and felt itchy in his chest. The bigger the breasts the witches had, the higher the magic power they could use, so all great witches had great breasts. From this point of view, Yuan-shi's disguise had the talent to become a witch. Pafu! Pafu! The green slime happily stuck on Yuan-shi's chest. No, Pafu! Yuan-shi flipped the disobedient little slime. The witch's curse was too terrible. It could create a magic organ that didn't exist. Is it possible that such a strange change would occur if the witch is a man? There should be no male in the witch race, because only women can awaken their witch bloodline. As the descendants of witches, only girls had the potential to be a new witch, and boys could only be a magician. Therefore, in the witch god's domain, the status of women is much higher than that of men. After all, it was a god's domain ruled by witches. In theory, there would never be a male witch. The will of the great stars, your strength is too strong. In the face of such a situation, Yuan-shi tried to weep but failed to shed a tear. Now, he was afraid he wouldn't reveal his true identity even if he took a bath with the girls of the Starwing Knights if he wrapped in towels. Is it an illusion? An illusion? It seems that this non-existent chest is still slowly absorbing mana from the air. If this goes on, it will develop again. Rose noticed the change. Although it was only for a moment, she did feel the aura of the witch from Yuan-shi's body. That was what only the witches could perceive, the blessings and curses of the witches. May's taste has become familiar. Rose rubbed her hand and smelled Yuan-shi like a pet puppy. Pafu! Pafu! The green slime jumped out of Yuan-shi's chest and flew to Rose with curiosity, but was hit by Rose's magic missile, and then rotated 720 degrees in the air and fell into Alexander's chest. Well, the slime's core? Alexander looked at the green slime on her chest and rubbed it with a strange look on her face. It feels good. Is this May's trophy? It's a rare slime core. Mordred also came up and pinched the green slime. Pafu! Pafu! The small and lovely green slime made a pleasant sound and seemed to enjoy the treatment. Humph! I'm going to kill slime for 300 years. The little witch was still holding a grudge. May is the only one who can touch my chest. It seemed that she just said something surprising. A big sweat bead fell from Yuan-shi's forehead. May's blessing is the best. Ignoring the three knights who were kneading and pinching the green slime, Rose stood on her toes and rubbed her face against the lower edge of Yuan-shi's chest. Obviously, there seemed to be nothing there, but it brought the little witch unprecedented sense of security. In the past, her favorite pastime was to lie in the arms of her sisters and act like a spoiled child. Now, May gave her the same feeling. She felt that she had become more dependent on May and couldn't leave May. It must be because of the symptoms of May poisoning had deepened. The witch's curse is terrible. Yuan-shi pressed the little witch Rose's chest wrapped in bandages. The hand feel was incredibly good. Yes, it's inconvenient to have big chest. It's heavy and it affects balance. Every time I take a bath, I would feel my shoulders were overtired. Why do people think that this kind of thing is good? It's not necessary at all except for storing magic. Rose complained. If the civilian girls of the Starwing Knights had heard her words, they would be deathly jealous. Yuan-shi sighed. It's heavy. It's too heavy. This is the unbearable burden of life. Pafu! Pafu! The little green slime jumped up and down between the chest of the three knights, making a cheerful sound. Yuan-shi began to get used to the current situation. Fortunately, the organ that stored magic was still part of himself. Through the breathing method Cassina taught him, Yuan-shi gradually grasped its nature. It didn't really exist, but was probably like a concretization of a certain concept, the witch's blessing, curse. As for Yuan-shi, he regarded it as a piece of equipment, a magic breastplate, which could store huge amounts of magic and protect his chest. Because it was actually the coagulate of mana, the defense of this breastplate was not superficial. It could probably block all hero-ranked magic attacks. In addition, there are other uses. Pafu. After fully enjoying the chest of the three girl knights, the green slime core jumped back to Yunshi's chest and swam in the fountain of magic. At the same time, as Yunshi shared the little witch's seed, all members of the Starwing Knights received different benefits. In the headquarters of the Starwing Knights, Hua Yu was dealing with documents. She suddenly frowned and looked at her chest. A source of magic appeared and rose directly to a very high level. As Ling Ling was secretly eating snacks, she suddenly found that her perception of the world became clearer. Her source of magic appeared and had the same quality as Hua Yu's. Similar changes had also occurred to other noble girls of the Starwing Knights family. They all found that middle-level or even top-level source of magic appeared in their bodies. By contrast, almost all the civilian girls of the Starwing Knights had only obtained low-level source of magic. None of them obtained the witch's blessing, curse. At least no one in the Starwing Knights was qualified to acquire this level of talent. Unlike the sword skill talent and the source of magic, the witch's blessing was clearly beyond the reach of the girls of the Starwing Knights. Similarly, the three girl knights' talents had also been disseminated. 7 girls awakened their weapons master talent, 2 obtained the berserker bloodline, and 4 obtained the skills of the rider. Conversely, the 4 members of the Knights and Magic team also received feedback from the girls of the Starwing Knights. Well, is this the so-called blessing? Lancelot was the first to perceive her own changes. As a weapon master, she was sensitive to her changes in every muscle and nerve. 3 extraordinary gifts shared by all members of the Starwing Knights. Sword skill talent, weakened. Mentality talent, weakened. Body talent, weakened. Although they were all weakened, they were all great talents with unlimited potential. Now, there was another talent that could be shared by the seeds. Rose's talent, the source of magic. All the girls had obtained the 4 kinds of supernatural talents. Although they were weakened compared to the original talents, it could drive countless ordinary people crazy if they knew about this. Moreover, these talents would continue to grow, and in this network of seeds, there were already more than one member of the Starwing Knights that had awakened their own unique talents, such as Hua Yu's White Golden Rose bloodline and Xiao Chao's Mortal Sword. Yunshi's seed had evoked their real potential, and their rebirth would further enhance Yunshi's talent. After all, the talents he obtained from the seeds were never weakened. However, Yunshi had always used Hua as a reference, so he had no pride at all, rather a sense of inferiority. Hua didn't choose to enter the hero rank, and he made the same choice. He wanted to wait until he became stronger before stepping into that realm. As for how strong he was now, Yunshi himself didn't clearly know, because his strength was still increasing and was far from his limit. When normal human beings reach the limit of flesh and blood, they have to try to enter the hero rank. Otherwise, once their potential of flesh and blood was exhausted, they would never be able to enter the hero rank. Yunshi's situation was quite different from that. He was more like an archaic dragon or an elf. These inherently extraordinary races were far superior to human beings. In the eyes of these strong races, reaching the hero rank was as easy as breathing. Their blessing's awesome. May's blessing is so powerful. As a berserker, Mordred clearly felt that her physical strength had been strengthened dramatically. Just as the members of the Starwing Knights had different adaptations to different talents, Mordred had very high adaptability to Mumu's diamond body. Not only just the height of her body improved, but also there were incredible changes happening inside her body. The density of bones, nerves, and muscles, all parameters related to strength increased continuously. Mordred took a deep breath and then a clear crack went throughout her body. It was the resonance of bones and muscles. It was the cheer of the berserker physique. Now, she could be sure that it wasn't a dream. Power, speed, recovery ability, all the values related to the berserker body had been greatly increased. If this wasn't a miracle, then nothing could be called a miracle. Puff. What a wonderful blessing. Alexander showed a strange smile. She also acquired Mumu's talent, But it wasn't Muumuu's diamond body, but something else. That was one of Muumuu's advantages that even she hadn't discovered yet. Walking to the carriage not far away, Alexander touched the tall horse's head and simply said a word, "Hello?" The tall horse felt weak and almost knelt down in front of Alexander, which was the natural response of ordinary animals to the pressures of a superior being. Alexander's talent, King's Cavalry, was improved by Muumuu's unknown talent and once again raised to a more terrible field. Maybe this talent could be renamed Cavalry on a Dragon's Back? As for Rose, her changes were the biggest. Rip! With a sharp tearing sound, Rose screamed and looked at the bandage which was suddenly tore open by her suddenly growing breasts. Undoubtedly, the breasts which symbolized her which talent had become bigger than before. With the fall of the snow-white bandage, Rose's charming, smooth, round breasts were once again exposed in front of Yunshi. Pink and white. The delicate twin peaks rippled out a thrilling arc in the air. The fruits were so huge, but the buds in front of the chest were a lovely pink. A beautiful arc formed from her chest, after reaching the apex, followed by a downward arc, outlining that pair of delicate crystal white was cream buns. With her breathing, this pair of enlarged peaks swayed slowly and repeatedly, making Yunshi's eyes dazzled. Oh, it must be because of the Twin Witch's mentality talent. Rose must have great adaptability with the Twin Witch's talents, which wasn't a 1+1 improvement, but was more like a fierce chemical reaction. As a result, Rose's source of magic was instantly promoted to an incredible level. The witch's blessing, curse, faithfully reflected this change, breaking open the bandage. Oh no. Why did my chest get bigger again? I don't want it. The little witch burst into tears. She was clearly a leader of flat-chested witches, who advocated that witches should enhance their personality and charm by exploring the source of magic and understanding the rules of magic. Why are her breasts still getting bigger? She likes poor breasts. We should become a great witch not with our own talents, but with our own efforts. This was the declaration of flat-chested witches. Although none of these flat-chested witches had become a great witch with their own efforts, it was still a belief of many witches. Rose had many good friends who had this belief. If they saw her appearance now, they would definitely break off relations with her. No, it's not my fault. Why doesn't May's blessing make my breasts smaller? The little witch cried like a child when she said the words, which, if heard by the Starwing Knights, were enough to cause an uprising. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whether your breasts are big or small, we are your friends. Rose, cheer up. Lancelot quickly inspected Rose's chest and got an enviable figure. Then she began to weave a new bandage for Rose. Yes, we are your friends. We don't mind it. Mordred brandished her two-handed heavy sword. In fact, her breasts had also become a little bigger, but weren't that noticeable like Rose's. You should learn to get used to it. It's not a shame. If you have a pair of big breasts, it's comfortable to need them. Alexander smiled and rubbed Rose's twin peaks with a pleasant look. Oh, yes, this hand feel is perfect. It's perfect to get bigger, little Rose. Cough. Please respect yourself, everybody. She had turned around long ago, but that pair of snow-white peaks continuously appeared in his mind, which made him feel despair. Except for Lancelot, they are all problem girls. Why you? On what basis do you think this team is very suitable for the Starwing Knights? That's of course because they have big breasts. May, didn't you very much like big-breasted girls? This was already an open secret in the Starwing Knights from a long time ago. The imprint is strengthened. On the roof of the girls' dormitory of the White Lotus Sword Palace, Robin sat there and looked towards the end of the horizon. You can't be happy. It's too luxurious for you. Have you ever seen your hands stained with blood, little bloody bird? Robin doesn't fly in the sky freely. It's not her world. Come back, come back, come back. Go back to the world of blood and killing. The birds symbolizing ominousness and death were low whispers around Robin's ears, tempting her to go back to a world full of death, which does not belong to the mortal world. In her pupils, there were patterns of thorns and flowers, either of which was bloody. As a member of the Starwing Knights, She had also acquired extraordinary talents suitable for herself, the Twin Witch's mentality talent. Very few of the girls of the Starwing Knights could obtain the Twin Witch's talents. As the god servants, White Lotus and Red Lotus had incredible amounts of spiritual power. Acquiring their talents, Robin could now see her fate more clearly. It had never been changed. The future she saw with her ability was still full of blood and death. Once she descended from into the nightmare world, she had no way back. I'm getting stronger. Closing her eyes, Robin clearly felt the power of fate surging through her body, and now she could even clearly see the upper limit of life for the vast majority of people. In the entire White Lotus Sword Palace, more than 90% of the disciples had less than 300 years of life, which meant that even if they had a smooth life, it wasn't possible for them to live more than 300 years. Only the lives of the master of the White Lotus Sword Domain and several tutors were beyond this limit. However, it was clear that the master of the White Lotus Sword Domain's time was up, and Robin could even see the death aura around his body. Probably, in less than 10 years, the master of the White Lotus Sword Domain would come to the end of his life. On the contrary, there were still monsters whose life forces were far stronger than the master of the White Lotus Sword Domain in the White Lotus Sword Palace. For example, the Twin Witches. Robin couldn't even see the upper limit of the life of White Lotus and Red Lotus. Similarly, she couldn't predict the limit of Huahua's life. Just looking at Huahua, Robin could feel her strong life force that could crush everything. This was a rare experience for Robin. In theory, as long as a person was still at the hero rank, she could figure out the approximate range of the person's life. The vast majority of ordinary people couldn't live more than 100 years, and the lives of hero-ranked people were between 300 years and 1,000 years. Human beings are short-lived creatures. The upper limit of their lives is not worth mentioning compared with the lives of dragons and elves. Unless the person could step into the legend rank, the person's life could truly exceed this numerical range and even reach infinity, just like Cassina the battle god. In the past, Robin couldn't see the life limit of legend-ranked beings, but now there were 3 such monsters in the White Lotus Sword Palace. Similarly, there was also a strange thing here. That was the girls of the Starwing Knights. When she first observed the life limit of the members of the Starwing Knights, she wondered if there was something wrong with her eyes. Why do all of them have lives close to 5 digits? How can this be true? Even the upper limit of her life was changed. In the past, her life was always a negative number in her eyes, but now the number became a positive number. Only she understood what this meant. Humans are the most standard life form in the endless gods' domains. Nothing is the best, and nothing is the lowest. The overall value of human talent has always maintained a constant level for thousands of years. In the endless gods' domains, the human race is a benchmark to measure the value of a race. The races whose value is below the humans are lower races, while those far beyond the humans are the higher races. In any case, the life of human beings, even if they are at the hero rank, cannot naturally reach 5 digits. The existence of the Starwing Knights clearly transcended the boundaries of human beings, and now, after she became a member of this special group, she finally found the root cause. May's blessing, or May's curse, is irrevocable bondage. This is May's blessing. Feeling the source of magic formed in her body, Robin finally understood where the root of all this came from. The source of magic. Why? Isn't this a witch's talent? No, 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 no. Something is wrong. Curse, curse, curse. The witch's curse is coming. Finding that Robin suddenly had something she shouldn't have, the bloody bird screamed with panic. I see. So, even you don't understand this phenomenon? A ball made of blood floated on Robin's fingertip. Her eyes gazed at the ball, seemingly seeing a distinct future. To overcome the curse of Robin's, only to find a stronger curse, blessing. Now she found it. May. It's a blessing and also a curse. More blood wrapped around Robin's fingertip, which was a force she couldn't use before, a source power of nightmare creatures. At this moment, she finally gained her first strength in the invincible curse. The blood rippled and formed a pool of blood at Robin's foot. Her tiny figure sank into the pool and disappeared from the world. The Blood Walker awakened at this moment. From this moment on, She was no longer just an observer of fate. Blood and curses are with her. After trying every possible way to persuade Rose, she finally agreed to put on the new bandage made by Lancelot, and she finally concluded the entrance test. To be honest, she would rather fight 100 green hippos for 3 days and 3 nights than have another assessment like this. For him, such an assessment was a little too fascinating. Fortunately, after returning to the girls' dormitory, Yu told him that the next entrance test would be held after half a month. It was to test the civilian girls of the Sword Palace. Their strength had a significant difference with the Magic and Knights team. Therefore, if they want to join the Starwing Knights, they need to undergo more preliminary examinations. Of course, if you really like it, you can add people in at any time. Because the Starwing Knights are Maze Knights. Yu looked at Yuanxi's embarrassed face with a smile, just as she had seen through his nature. I didn't build the Starwing Knights. Yuanxi felt innocent. Who could have imagined the sudden rise of the Starwing Knights? Yeah, I never thought that the Starwing Knights would become what they are now. May, it's not just 1 or 2 forces that want to rob us. Likewise, there are not just 1 or 2 people who want to join the Starwing Knights. Yu had never expected that the original small group would now grow to this scale. The origin of everything was because of May's blessing. The power of this blessing was 100 times stronger than the legendary black-haired girl's lucky charm. Why does no one want to leave this small group? Yu was sure that if they had the chance when they were still in the entrance test of the Sword Palace, many of the girls of the Starwing Knights would make a different choice. However, a person, or rather to say, a belief changed everything. Because of this person and belief, they began to firmly believe that they will become stronger and better until they can match this person. Because of this person, no matter what temptation they face, even if that temptation comes from gods and demons, their beliefs will never waver. Every word and compliment of this person makes them blush and makes their heartbeat race. Having her is like having the world. It belongs to the world of the Starwing Knights. It is the ultimate fantasy of the girls. Probably, even if they knew this person is actually this belief would not change. May, you are such a liar. Humph, you are not an honest person at all. Yu thought and couldn't help but pinch Yuanxi's cheek with jealousy. Only by this person's side would she forget her dignified disguise and become a mischievous girl. Haha, sensing the sensuous smell in the air and recalling the mistakes Starfire, Star Thunder, and Star Snow made when he was playing Star Go, Yuanxi couldn't turn up his willpower in the face of Yu. Even if it wasn't done by his soul, it was done by his body. This wasn't a mistake that could be solved by apologizing. May, whatever you want, we will help you get it. We'll get you whatever you like. Just remember that the Starwing Knights are Maze Knights. Golden curls fell on Yuanxi's cheeks. Yu carefully combed Yuanxi's long black hair and poured out her heartfelt feelings in a soft voice. The white golden rose bloodline symbolizes faithfulness. For her, believing in love is more important than believing in gods. It is a holy proof that will never fade. For the sake of love, she was willing to devote everything she has. This is the virtue of the white golden rose. Yuanxi's heart was beating rapidly, because he could clearly feel that pair of pink and delicate peaks were closely pressing on his back. The girl's temperature made his body numb, and the secret hiding under his maid uniform was ready to start a rebellion. Yu's sweet and enthusiastic voice and the warm whispering in his ear were like a poison of love, which made him unable to extricate himself. No, there shouldn't be such a development. A gentleman shouldn't let this happen. Bang, bang, bang. In the quiet room, Yuanxi could clearly hear his accelerating heartbeat. Bang, bang, bang. Likewise, Yu's heart was beating faster and faster. Good timing, geographical convenience, and good human relations. Maybe today is the right time? Yu, Meilon is bullying me. The locked door was smashed open by unreasonable brutality, and the crying secretary of the Starwing Knights ran in, looking tearfully at Yu and Yuanxi, who instantly resumed their normal posture. Well, that's the time when a fool has a keen intuition. Yu sighed. Next time, the plan will be more perfect. Maybe the wilderness is a good choice. Yunshi sighed deeply. Yunshi looked at Mayer in front of him with doubtful and incredulous eyes. Pafu, the green slime, also looked at the star elf suspended in the air, even though it didn't know why it would do this. Tell me, this is a true star trial, not something else. Yunshi looked at Mayer with an almost imploring look. If Mayer sent him to the fire god's world or wind god's world, he would go crazy. You did well in the water god's world, master? Mayer looked at her master with a strange expression and shook her head. There is only one god in the White Lotus Sword domain, the water god. This is a regular star trial. There should be no god rivals. Nevertheless, you still need to explore the details yourself. Yunshi breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it was no longer another place like the water god's fantasy island, everything was okay. For him, what happened in the water god's world almost gave him a psychological shadow. Well, go ahead, master. Mayer gently approached Yunshi and kissed him on the lips. In the sweet and touching whisper of the star elf, countless stars fell. The third star trial began. Tonight, there were many young girls who also entered the same dream. Prince. Familiar and unfamiliar voices were ringing in his ears. Yunshi opened his hazy eyes and looked at the unfamiliar ceiling. The ceiling is engraved with the pattern of sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, just like a shrinking world. As his mind recovered, the task of this star trial appeared in his mind. The name of the world, Dragon War. Main quest: defeat the terrible dragon that is raging across the kingdom. Optional quest 1: girls fighting against the evil dragon. Leading the Starwing Knights to defeat the dragon and receive a huge reward. Optional quest 2: the whispers of the witches. Find the legendary witches and get their help. Optional quest 3: the whisper of the ancient gods. May the great old gods bless you. Optional quest 4: dragon's secret treasure. To find the hidden treasure of the dragon. Well, this is a normal trial. Yunshi was about to shed tears when he looked at the quests. There were clear enemies that must be defeated. There is no need to force himself to marry millions of brides. There are no compulsory side quests. There is only one road to the goal. It seemed that even without the help of anybody, he could hope to accomplish the task by himself. More importantly, this was a normal star trial, which meant that after the trial, everyone would forget about the world. This is the star trial he wants. He's ready. He's going to slaughter the dragon by himself. All of you in the Starwing Knights, I won't bother you this time. I'll solve everything by myself. Prince, have you gotten up yet? The familiar voice continued to ring in Yunshi's ear. In a particularly good mood, Yunshi looked at the owner of the voice. A bright red cloak, seemingly plain face, and the beautiful badge of transparent wings stretching out from the two sides of the starry sky. This was the badge recently ordered by the Starwing Knights. It was the symbol of the Starwing Knights. It seems that in this star trial, the girls of the Starwing Knights were on his side as always. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. This time, I don't need you to fight for me. I can solve all the problems by myself. Prince, your future is very bright. You are the hope of the world, the next king. On the day you were born, everyone was cheering for you. Even if there are evil dragons, they can't hide your glory. God is watching you. You are the only son of destiny. Please let us be your strength, our prince. The bloody augur lowered her head gently and told Yunshi the prophecy of his fate. Unfortunately, Yunshi was so excited that he didn't even hear a word. Because this time he was going to challenge the dragon alone. Sure enough, everyone in the Starwing Knights is here. They seem to have accepted their status as the regular knights of the kingdom and were working hard to practice and exercise in the name of the Starwing Knights. This time, I won't bother you. I will solve everything. I will directly go to the dragon's nest and slay the dragon, and ignore all the side quests. Since it wasn't the real world, then he could get the souls by defeating the enemies. As long as he collected enough souls to strengthen himself, 1 or 2 evil dragons were nothing in his eyes. Puff! The green slime curiously rolled around on the ground, seemingly adapting to the different magic of the world. Let's go. Yunshi started the trial of the Dragon War. In the forest, Yunshi met a long-lost old friend. It's a green hippo again. After experiencing so many things, The green hippo was no longer a boss in his eyes. He skillfully sprinted and rolled on the ground. Taking advantage of the green hippo as it slapped on the ground, he directly cut off the green hippo's huge buttocks. Boom! The green hippo rolled over and crushed. Without blinking his eyes, Yunshi took a step back and brandished the twin swords. With a beautiful heavy chop, the green hippo was cut in half. A large number of souls spilled over. For him now, killing the green hippo was just a little warm-up exercise. Sure enough, the green hippo can't satisfy me anymore. After absorbing the green hippo's souls, Yunshi shook his head. Of course, his strength was much stronger than when he first saw the green hippo, and the green hippo's souls weren't enough to make him stronger now. However, as long as killing the green hippos could let him obtain souls, Yunshi wouldn't let go of it. How many green hippos are there in this forest? Yunshi looked at the forest with excitement and began to sweep through the green hippo in the forest. Pafu, pafu, pafu. From left to right, from south to north, from west to east. Yunshi was sure that all green hippos in the forest were killed. Then he stopped and sat down by the bonfire in the forest to rest. That's great satisfaction. Happily counting the trophies he had harvested, Yunshi sighed with satisfaction. Although a green hippo's soul couldn't strengthen his power, but after collecting so many green hippo souls, his strength had still been improved a bit. Are the green hippos just monsters in the periphery? Taking out the map which marked the mountains occupied by the dragon, Yunshi showed an eager look. Now, my position should be here. He made a mark on the map. The bonfire here indicated that the first stage of the star trial had been completed. Next is to look for a second bonfire. After hunting more than 100 green hippos, Yunshi just took a short rest by the bonfire and began exploring more dangerous areas. He had a hunch that maybe the time for him to encounter the dragon was near. After all, there were only 3 areas on this map. The first area where many green hippos were found was marked. The second area was marked with many strange axe monsters sketch. And there was a dragon sketch on the third area on the map. With such a clear map, no one would lose the target. However, these lovely sketches must be painted by Ling Ling. Even the dragon sketch was chubby, not like an evil dragon at all. It should be a dragon that is stronger than the male fierce dragon. Yunshi was ready for it. Boom! A black axe drew a vicious track in the air, brushing past Yunshi's forehead and blowing his whole person out. There were 2 more axes flying towards Yunshi. With all his effort, he fortunately dodged them, but a strand of his hair was cut off. They are strong. They were the monsters in the second area, a kind of giant monster with sacks on the head and big axes in both hands. The monster was about 3 meters tall. The fierce muscles showed a dark glow, but they had a completely incompatible moving speed with that huge body. What's more, they acted collectively, with small teams of at least 3 members and big groups of almost 100 members. The second bonfire was located in the middle of the Black Axe Monster's patrol route. Is this a bonfire party for me? Stepping on the twin swords, Yunshi wiped his sweat. It was very dangerous. He was almost killed before he reached the bonfire. If so, he would have to revive at the bonfire in the first area. These black monsters were much tougher than the green hippos. So, since I can't go straight in, Yunshi squinted as he watched the Black Axe Monsters hovering around the unknown ruins. These Black Axe Monsters were like tools of killing. Once they left the ruins and entered the kingdom, a slaughter was inevitable. Ahu! Having eaten a piece of golden bread made by himself, Yunshi's energy was refreshed. Let me solve you here. Picking up a handful of pebbles from the ground, Yunshi decided to take advantage of his greatest strength and solve the fierce black monsters one by one. Shuffle. A snow-white pebble hit the nearest black monster's head, triggering the monster's counterattack mechanism. Boom! Like a raging beast, the Black Axe Monster rushed out of the ruins and ran directly at Yunshi. Yes, that's it. One by one, one by one. I can kill all of them in this manner. Yunshi showed a smile, pulled out the twin swords and dashed toward the Black Axe Monster. Yes, I will win. Yunshi was so sure. Boom! The Black Axe Monster fiercely brandished the two-handed axe again. Compared with green hippos, black axe monsters apparently mastered a very high killing skill, which could only be mastered in the battlefield, without any redundant action. The blood that was still remaining on the black two-handed axe was the best proof. She stepped on one of the crane-winged twin swords with one foot, turning over in the air with an action that no ordinary people could make, and the other sword drew out a beautiful arc in the air, thrusting at the black axe monster like a flying swallow. Chi. The black axe monster's head was cut off as a lot of blood was spewed out. As She had expected, when it was a one-on-one battle, he could win. Even though the black axe monster had superb killing skills, it still couldn't defeat She, who could fly in the air. Although She could only fly in the sky for a short time by stepping on the twin swords, it was still a great advantage in battle that could let him opponents feel despair. This black axe monster was the best proof. Yes, let me continue. She breathed a sigh of relief as he stepped on the black axe monster's body. However, he didn't notice that the black monster's body under his feet swelled abnormally. As if it had lost all its weight, it turned into a soft balloon-like material. The black axe monster's souls were 10 times more than the green hippos, which proved the strength of this black axe monster. Grasping the pebbles again, She locked in a small team of 3 black axe monsters and hit one of them on the top of the head. Boom! Like the first one, the second black axe monster rushed forward, smashing the heavy axe in its hand towards Shi. Shi continued to play his advantages in moving speed and three-dimensional space. He accustomed to the black axe monster's attack and was ready to launch a fatal blow as long as the black axe monster showed any flaws. The heavy two-handed axe, of course, had the crushing, destructive power to tear the enemy's body at one blow, but it would inevitably have some buffer time after the attack, which was determined by the weapon's nature. The black axe monsters seemed to have infinite physical strength, but this still didn't violate the general laws of physics. Unlike Hua's sky-flying sword, their attacks were traceable. After killing the third one, Shi had a general understanding of the black axe monster. Their souls were about 10 times as much as the green hippos. In terms of strength, speed, and killing skills, their fighting power was about 5 times more than that of the green hippo, in terms of strength, speed, and killing skills. They had no wisdom, just patrolling in this unknown ruin following a specific routine. Once they found the intruder, they would chase after Shi, but once Shi ran 500 meters away from the ruins, they would give up pursuing. In that case, this area is the best hunting ground. After absorbing the 3 black axe monster souls, Shi drew a simple map and determined the next battle strategy. Although in terms of the number of souls, this monster was only equal to 10 green hippos, but the quality of the souls was far superior to that of green hippos. It was much more exciting to absorb a black axe monster's souls than to hunt 10 green hippos one by one. This was not a delusion but a true fact. The material of these monsters was also of higher quality. For example, only elite green hippo would drop green crystals after they were killed, and all the black axe monsters would drop green crystals after they were killed. Absorb them, crane-winged twin swords. Shi let his strongest weapon at present absorb the green crystals to strengthen them. Perhaps after absorbing more high-level green crystals, they twin swords could level up. Shi had a small expectation. The next target is this team. Having killed one of the nearest patrol teams, Shi began to focus on another team close to him. Grasping the white pebbles in his hands, Shi locked one of the black axe monsters from hundreds of meters away. Hey! The pebble made a precise track and hit the black axe monster on the head. But this time, the black axe monster turned a blind eye and continued to move inside the ruins. Why? Shi was slightly surprised. Was the distance too far away? Or, if the black axe monsters couldn't find the attacker, they wouldn't take any actions? So, I have to get closer. Shi carefully stepped on the crane-winged twin sword like gliding in the snow, and then went to the edge of the ruins again. Aiming at the black axe monster, he threw out the pebbles in his hands again. Hiss! There was a strange noise in the ruins. It wasn't the sound of the pebbles hitting the black axe monster, but something else. Hiss! Hiss! Like being infected by something, the strange voices were echoing one after another behind Shi. What? Shi turned around and saw the 3 dead black axe monsters bulging into large balloons and slowly standing up again. A large amount of blood spread out from the ground, covering the three black monsters' bodies. Although they had lost their heads, these black axe monsters carelessly raised the axes in their hands again, making a terrible scream. On their bodies, as well as on their weapons, a lot of unnatural bloodlines appeared. What bad luck! She instantly flew to the higher sky, trying to leave this strange ruins. Whizzing! Before he flew above more than 3 meters, Shi's body shivered. A bloody hole appeared on his shoulder without warning, and a great deal of blood burst out at once. What happened? What attacked me? Shi fell heavily from the sky and saw 3 blood axes severely cutting down towards his body. The burning bonfire brought Shi only a trace of warmth. He felt the world's deep malice against him. What the hell was that? After his death, all the souls he obtained before and even the strengthening of the twin swords disappeared, as if he didn't obtain the souls from the beginning. Having been chopped into mince by 3 big axes higher than himself, Shi seemed to have returned to the first trial when he first faced the green hippo, so weak and helpless. What attacked me? Shi was more concerned about the cause of death than the death itself. The enemies would revive after a short time. Okay, Shi could accept it. Anyway, it was just a matter of time to kill them again. The keys were where did the attack that pierced his body come from and who the enemy was. Recalling the situation at that time, Shi pressed his shoulder as if the pain still remained in his body. It seemed that his shoulder had been penetrated before he realized it. He felt that it should be a spear or a sword, because the pain of the body being pierced and the flesh being torn wouldn't deceive him. Remembering the pain of being chopped up by a huge axe later, the damage caused by the attack was even higher, mainly due to psychological shadows. The battle with Shea Longness in the Water God's world made Shi have a delusion that he had become strong enough to fight against a legend-ranked opponent. There should be no enemies that could hurt him in the Star Trials. The reality told him that the idea was naive. The difficulty of this trial was hell-like. If once he was careless, he would be killed in any battle. Once again, standing by the bonfire, Shi stepped on the twin swords and headed towards the terrible ruins again. This time, instead of trying to kill the green hippos in the first area, he plunged directly from the air into the ruins with courage, flying directly to the bonfire, which represented the only safe place in the second area. Hiss! 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 The unknown evil whisper resounded in his ear again, and Shi had the feeling of being stared at by something invisible again. Chi! At least, Shi saw what pierced through his body. It was a thorn, which looked like a sword and a spear. It was so fast that Shi could hardly respond to it. First his shoulder, then his right hand. Just for an instant, Shi's body had been pierced through 2 times, falling down from the air again. Boom, boom, boom. On the ground, countless black axe monsters surrounded him and dozens of black axes were raised high in the air. The next moment, Shi experienced how meat was chopped on the kitchen board again. After the 13th death, Shi revived beside the bonfire and stared at the warm bonfire with his eyebrows frowned. Pafu, the green slime, also revived. It still wasn't used to the deaths and looked at him with a grievance. Sorry, it's my fault. Shi touched the little fellow's head. It seemed that the green slime was seen as part of him. It was also revived by the bonfire after he was chopped up by the black axe monsters. What great frustration! The monsters in this ruin were far stronger than Shi had expected. The battles with them made Shi feel the great malice of the world again. Especially the attacks from those sharp thorns, Shi could find no way to dodge them. Because of them, he couldn't collect more souls. That is to say, if he couldn't kill all these monsters and light the second bonfire before he was killed by the thorns, Shi couldn't get any benefit at all in the ruin. At the end, where were the thorns coming from? Were they shot out by some invisible monsters? Shi faced similar desperation before. In the second star trial, K's arrows killed him countless times on the bridge she guarded. This time, the killer was more terrible than K, because Shi couldn't see where the monster was and how it came into play. When the transparent thorn appeared, it was basically equivalent to having been hit. She didn't even have a second to dodge the thorns when he found them, and these damn thorns seemed to be able to automatically lock on the target's body. That is to say, there are at least two kinds of enemies in the ruins. She updated the map by using the information he obtained at the cost of his life. On the map, the small teams of Black Axe monsters were represented by forks, the smallest 3 members teams were represented by small forks, and the largest 15 members teams were represented by large forks. It could be clearly seen that more than 100 Black Axe monsters were in the ruins. They weren't randomly distributed in the ruins. The closer he got to the center of the ruins, the more monsters there were. It was almost impossible to try to lure them all by throwing pebbles. Is there anything here? She carefully recalled the scenery he had seen from the air. He was convinced that in the center of the city there was an abandoned square. Not far from the square and under the steps was the location of the second bonfire. Observing with his naked eyes, he couldn't see anything special in this abandoned square. Well, I think I can only go and observe the square again. With a solemn look, She flew to the second area again. This time, instead of killing the Black Axe monsters, he turned his body over with the highest speed and craziest movements in the air, trying to dodge the invisible enemy's thorn attacks. His only goal was to rush to the mysteriously abandoned square and see what there was. Hiss! 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 The familiar murmur of death resounded over the ancient ruins again. For the first time, She dodged a transparent thorn when he flew at his full speed. He was delighted with such an unexpectedly good result. So, this attack was not invincible, and he should really be able to dodge it. As long as my speed is fast enough, there is still hope to dodge them. In the next second, She finally broke through an invisible barrier and approached the core of the ruins for the first time. There, he saw thousands of weapons scattered densely over the abandoned square. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Once again, She was chopped into mince. In the darkness, She's eyes gazed at the bonfire in front of him with a helpless look on his face. 135 times. That was the number of times he challenged the ruins. Hacked to death by the Black Axe monsters, smashed to death, swung to death. He experienced all kinds of death. Occasionally, he could kill a few Black Axe monsters, but soon he would be locked by the invisible weapons, then was besieged by countless Black Axe monsters. The best result was only to kill about 10 Black Axe monsters in the periphery. As long as he got a little closer to the center of the ruins, the only thing that was waiting for him was another miserable death. According to the rules of the Star Trial, he must kill all the monsters in the second area before he could settle his harvest in the second bonfire and use the souls he acquired to strengthen himself. As long as he died once in the second area, the souls he had acquired would disappear. This was the rule of the Star Trial, cruel and true. If his opponents were just those Black Axe monsters, She would be more or less hopeful to achieve this goal. At least he wasn't afraid of these monsters if it was a one-on-one battle. In the previous Star Trial, the stone soldiers killed him countless times, but he eventually broke through their encirclement and arrived at the tower. However, this time, the difficulty in this area was even higher. There were unimaginable terrors in the center of the ruins. Among the 135 deaths, She only rushed to the square a few times and saw the dense cluster of weapons suspended over the square. The first time he saw the weapons in the square area, She was almost desperate. If the number was only a few dozen, he could give it a try. If the number was hundreds, it meant that the difficulty of the ruins was hell-like. However, the weapons She saw over the square were greater than thousands. Thousands of weapons floated over the square, showing a bright red color, constantly moving back and forth with a unique law. They seemed to be the most competent soldiers. As soon as they found him, these weapons would quickly lock on him and then become invisible, giving him lethal strikes. Once She arrived at the square, what awaited him was a storm of attacks. The weapons that poured down from the sky were like the wind sweeping a fallen leaf, shattering She's body thoroughly. Even though She had experienced so many deaths, he couldn't help but feel desperate facing such a situation. Am I too weak? She doubted whether it wasn't the right decision to go to this area alone. This night, Only the bonfire and Pafu in his arms could bring a little warmth to Yunshi's desperate heart. Pafu's round body turned into Yunshi's favorite shape and let him rub and pinch it. "We'll try again." Feeling the warmth of the little green slime in his hands, Yunshi breathed deeply and his eyes became firm again. The moon today is a little red. Looking up, an extraordinarily large round moon hung in the dark sky, illuminating the ruins not far away, covering the ruins in an abnormal red color. Is it a delusion? With such doubts, Yunshi once again stepped into the forbidden zone of life. This time, he didn't have to throw pebbles. Many black axe monsters had rushed out of the ruins in a fierce manner. Hiss! 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 In the eerie murmurs, Yunshi failed to fly to the sky and was shot down by 3 invisible spiral spikes. Boom! 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 The black axe monsters were in an abnormally mad mood. They instantly surrounded him and chopped him into a bunch of pulp. Yunshi died again. What a joke! Once again revived beside the bonfire, Yunshi gazed at the second area in despair. These black axe monsters suddenly went crazy and their attacks became more fierce. This wasn't a big deal, actually. The real problem was these invisible spiral spikes. As long as there were these black monsters, there would be eerie whispers, and then the invisible spiral spikes would appear and kill him within 10 seconds. Now, even the forest that had been cleaned by Yunshi was not safe anymore. These black axe monsters seemed to smell something and surround the bonfire. If it wasn't because the monsters couldn't find the bonfire and get close to this area, Yunshi would have been chopped up countless times. What can I do? For the first time, Yunshi found that he couldn't find any solution. There is no way out. Yunshi was completely blocked at the bonfire. Looking gloomily at the black axe monsters who were searching for him around, Yunshi had no way and simply laid down with Pafu in his arms. These common monsters are already so strong. Then how strong could the dragon be? After calming down and sorting out the quests, Yunshi found that he really looked down upon this star trial called Dragon War. Slaying the dragon alone by himself? What an absurd dream. If Huahua was here, she could probably slay the dragon, but his current self had no way to achieve this goal. Sigh. It looks like I have to do these side quests. Maybe I can find a way out from them. Yunshi looked at the big full moon in the sky. The moonlight tonight was so beautiful and bright. Maybe it was the unique scenery in this world. The next morning, with the first ray of sunlight shown at the end of the horizon, Yunshi found that the fierce black axe monsters had finally withdrawn like the fall of the tide. Even the whisper that always sounded him had stopped appearing, and the black axe monsters' footsteps became a little dull. During the day, their raging state will be removed automatically. No, maybe they can only play their full strength at night. During the night, Yunshi never successfully rushed out of the bonfire area. He had to silently observe the black axe monsters and find their changes. Let me try again. Unlike the challenge in the previous star trial, this time, it was totally impossible for him to win, because he couldn't understand what was attacking him and how he was killed. The most terrible thing was not a powerful opponent, but the unknown. If he couldn't understand what the enemies were, he had no way to defeat them. After all the black axe monsters left the forest, Yunshi began his last try. This time, instead of challenging the horrible ruins, he tried to bypass this area and enter the dragon's nest by another route. Stepping on the twin swords, Yunshi set out from the bonfire and tries to find ways to bypass the ruins. The first time, he flew to the highest sky he could reach. Hiss! 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 The whisper of death appeared, which meant the failure of this attempt. He was shot down, chopped to death, and revived beside the bonfire. Conclusion: there is no way to break through the ruins. The second time, from the left side, it should be detoured away from the ruins. Hiss! 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 It was that voice again. It was everywhere. Why did the ruins appear again? I'm moving along a road more than 10 kilometers away from the ruins. He was shot down, chopped to death, and revived beside the bonfire. Conclusion: there is no way to take a detour. The ruins can move. The third time, from a farther distance, which was almost a roundabout route outside the forest. In theory, Even if the ruins could move, he wouldn't meet it at such a remote place. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The familiar whisper and familiar pain. Again, he was shot down and chopped to death. The final conclusion. The ruins should be an insurmountable entry point into the dragon's nest. It's an inescapable challenge. Maybe it was some kind of magic or some kind of curse. Anyway, if he wanted to fight the dragon, he must go through the ruins. There was no other way to avoid it. It's really a perfect defense. After more than a dozen deaths, Yunshi finally learned the lesson. It was impossible for him to break this line of defense unless he immediately mastered Yunhai's quadrant sword or the sky-flying sword. He had zero possibility of breaking through the barrier. The unknown enemy, incomprehensible and invisible attack, and the mystery in the center of the square. Yunshi had to admit that he couldn't complete this trial alone. He couldn't even approach the dragon's nest. How could he defeat the dragon? It seems that I have to collect information first. Holding Pafu in his arms, Yunshi had to go back to the palace, his stronghold in this trial world. Prince, you've come back. Where on earth did you go? After you disappeared, the whole palace was in disarray. All the members of the Starwing Knights went out to look for you. I was the only one left behind. Prince, you are the hope of our kingdom. Please don't make such a mess again. Before returning to the palace, Yunshi was severely preached to by his own court diviner. Robin stared at him and almost put her forehead on Yunshi's face. Well, do you know about the dragon's nest? Only then did Yunshi find out that Robin was so excited once she got angry. The dragon's nest? Prince, tell me you weren't going there. Robin looked at Yunshi with astonishment. It's a forbidden area for the whole kingdom. So far, no one can come back if they ventured deep into the second area. Well, yes, as long as you enter the second area, there is no way that any ordinary people could escape. Yunshi clearly proved this with his dozens of deaths. Well, do you know anything about the ruins? Looking at Robin's astonished face, Yunshi finally got some clues. Are you saying that forgotten ruins in the second area? Robin furrowed her eyebrows. Several bloody birds flew out of her cloak and launched their special ability, the unfortunate prophecy of Robin's. Are you going to be there to see me suffer? It's me. I like the way you cry when you're hurt. Are you going to watch me cry there? Yes, your tender expression is so lovely and touching. Why are you so cruel and heartless? Because it makes me feel how beautiful the world is. I can forgive you for everything. Do you hate me? No, I like you. I like the way you fall into the pool of blood. I like your expression of fear because of despair. That is why I want to see you. Let your white wedding dress be dyed with blood, so that you can see the truth in the ruins forgotten by time. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get out of there. You'll just go back there over and over again and become part of it. Is this a prophecy? It was the first time she had heard such a wonderful prediction from the bloody birds flying above Robin's shoulders. Prince, I suggest you go to the library to find clues. The forgotten ruins isn't something of our time. Robin changed the topic and gave Yunshi a hint. All right. Eventually, Yunshi had some clues about the ruins. He decided to follow Robin's direction, being a good student this time. Walking on the primitive corridor, Yunshi looked at the detailed and vivid reliefs on the wall and felt that he had come to a different world. Speaking of this, the background of this world was incredibly detailed. Whether the magnificent palace or the wilderness, they looked 100% like the real world. Compared with the previous two trial worlds, this world was more vibrant, and the number of human beings living here was far more than those two trial worlds. According to the rules of the Star Trial, it seemed that the entire Starwing Knights had been summoned to this world, as well as other disciples of the White Lotus Sword Palace. As for the side quest, the Whispers of the Witches, Yunshi had a vague guess. It should be the Twin Witches. After all, they were the strongest witches in the White Lotus Sword domain. Among the other three side quests, girls fighting against the evil dragon should refer to the Starwing Knights. There is no clue about the side quest, the Whisper of the Ancient Gods, and Dragon's Secret Treasure should be related to the evil dragon. Now, his only clue was that there seemed to be a hidden truth about the forgotten ruins in the big library, and that truth pointed to some ancient curse. What on earth is that inexplicable attack? She sat in the big library with a lot of ancient books piled up in front of him. They were all the books related to the forgotten ruins he could find in this big library, which almost recorded everything that people knew about the ruins. These books were all banned books. If Shi had not the highest level of authority in the kingdom, he would probably not have been allowed to read these books, which represented bad luck. The origin of the forgotten ruins, the murdered queen, the curse of the bride, invisible land. Reading these books, Shi's eyebrows became more and more furrowed. The origin of the forgotten ruins, the origin of everything, can be traced back to thousands of years ago, startling from a noble queen who longed for perfect love. The kingdom she ruled was the predecessor of Shi's kingdom, named Assyria. She was born with super high spiritual talent, and her family had inherited the perfect blood of magic from generation to generation. Isn't the queen's bloodline the predecessor of the witch's bloodline? Apparently, the Assyrian queen's family was clearly the predecessor of the witch race. If she was born in the witch god's domain, she would certainly become a great witch. The queen was loved by the people of the kingdom, and her rule was unshakable. The only wish the perfect queen had was to have a fantastic lover, but she didn't find one. There was no person in the Assyria kingdom who was qualified to be the queen's husband. Not only was she perfect in appearance, but she also possessed overwhelming magic power and even close combat strength. As the strongest person in the history of the kingdom, her fighting ability could rival everyone in the whole kingdom, and even the arrogant dragon race was no match for her. She had become a legend, and she had broken the limits of human beings. No matter how time had passed, she didn't become old. The great queen ruled the Assyria kingdom for 300 years. During the 300 years, the queen had done her best to lead the kingdom to create miracles, one after another. Everyone thought that the great queen would continue to rule the great Assyria kingdom for thousands of years. But as time went by, the queen became stronger and more lonely. Her relatives and friends all passed away in 300 years. Even their descendants and descendants' had all died. The queen had become the strongest and loneliest human in the world. She couldn't find a partner, and no one in the kingdom could accompany her. Everyone respected such a queen. They regarded her as the incarnation of gods and built numerous altars for her. God is sacred and inviolable. Just because the queen was in a low mood, some people would commit suicide and use their blood to prove their loyalty. The queen became increasingly unhappy, but couldn't find a solution to her problem. The perfect queen, the goddess in other people's eyes, felt so lonely and began to seek dangerous strength. She found a dangerous and horrible force, which appeared on this land of Assyria from nowhere. That was the power of the abyss. The queen's strange behavior was discovered, and people realized that their queen was seeking an evil power. This is not possible. The queen must be perfect. How can she touch the devil's power? They didn't want to admit that the perfect queen had degenerated. At the call of the high priest at that time, the people of the kingdom launched a rebellion against the queen and finally killed the queen in the palace, which was the forerunner of the forgotten ruins. Is there no star bridge in this world? After reading the book, she could easily see the defects of this world. The perfect queen, from beginning to end, had not found a husband that matched her, which seemed to be the beginning of all tragedies. If there were star bridges in this world, such tragedies would be impossible, because the star bridges connected endless gods' domains. If the queen of Assyria couldn't find a lover in her kingdom, she could simply leave her world and witness the infinite, splendid scenery of the endless gods' domains. In that case, the tragedy wouldn't happen. She continued to read, and started the second banned book, The Murdered Queen. The tragedy didn't end with the death of the queen. Rather, the real tragedy began at the time when the queen died. The soldiers, priests, and knights who killed the queen thought they had saved the kingdom. They buried the queen's body in the church, trying to let the queen rest in peace with the power of God. However, the queen couldn't rest in peace. From that day on, there would always be people in the palace to see the queen wearing a white wedding dress and wandering in the ancient palace. She didn't say anything, just wept softly, looking at the palace she once loved and the kingdom she had sworn to protect. Her tears turned into blood and stained the ground of the palace, little by little. The horrified knights attacked the ghost queen, but all the attacks were ineffective. The guilt of killing the queen drove the knights who were loyal to the queen crazy one after another. Half of them committed suicide in the palace, and the other escaped. This kingdom was the territory of one of the knights who left the Assyrian palace. As a sinner for killing the queen, he eventually chose to commit suicide, leaving behind only the order of guarding the ruins. The rudiment of this kingdom was born out of this order. Knights, priests, and any people who remained in the palace died one after another, and people were afraid to flee the palace, avoiding the weeping ghost of the queen. It lasted for 1 month after the queen's death. That night, the blood moon was hanging high above the palace. The lonely queen appeared on the high observatory and threw her own corolla at the blood moon. No one knew what happened afterward. All the records people found that remained in the ruins ended that night forever. The kingdom of Assyria was completely destroyed. All the people in the city died, nor did any other living creatures survive. The history of Assyria ended overnight. The survivors eventually gathered in this remote land and struggled to rebuild the country. Is this the monster in the ruins? Yunshi finally had a clear understanding of the ruins. The curse of the bride. After the Assyria kingdom was turned into ruins, adventurers entered the ruins from time to search for the lost treasures of the ancient Assyrian kingdom. Most of them lost their lives forever after entering. But there were also a few lucky people who survived the forgotten ruins. They had the same characteristics. All of them were unmarried women. Why? Yunshi wiped his eyes. They encountered an incredible curse in the ruins. What they saw with their eyes was not ruins but a beautiful kingdom that was still prosperous. In this kingdom, the kingdom was still under the perfect queen's rule and had gone through thousands of years. Just as the world turned into 2 different parts on the day of the queen's death, only unmarried girls could enter the dreamlike Assyria kingdom in the ruins and could bring out treasures. A girl only had such an opportunity once in her life. This was the curse of the forgotten ruins, but also a blessing. The dead queen still seemed to survive in some way in the forgotten ruins and still dominated her Assyrian kingdom. If a man entered the forgotten ruins, he would only encounter countless horrible black axe monsters. If you are a man, please don't try. Not only are there black axe monsters, but there are also 10,000 swords in the square. Yunshi gave a bitter laugh. At last, he knew where the black axe monsters were from. If he wanted to go to the dragon's nest, he must break through the Assyria queen's ruins. According to the records, she was dead, but still existed in some strange way. Only unmarried girls could enter the ruins safely. That's really puzzling. Why can't men enter there? Invisible Lands. Yunshi began to read the last banned book. This was about a strange sacrifice in the ruins. The Assyrian kingdom that existed only in the eyes of young girls had a special sacrifice, which was held by the queen. It was called the Queen's Sacrifice. The perfect queen created her people, the ghosts who dressed in blood-stained bridal gowns, always wandering around in the streets of the city. The ghosts seemed to have been waiting for something. If the girl who entered the Assyrian kingdom could catch one of the ghosts, then the girl could make a wish to the great Assyria queen. The rules of the wish. The girl ghosts had their names written in the front of their chest. The first syllable of the name of the ghost you catch must be the same as yours. The more ghosts you catch, the more flowers will appear on the bride's corolla on your head. The sacrifice will begin on the night of the bloody moon. These ghosts will not attack you, but will take the initiative to escape. You can use any method to catch these girl ghosts. The more ghosts you catch, the happier the queen will feel, and the more possibilities she will use to respond to your wishes. The wish can only be related to love. A girl who is in love will win the favor of the queen. Please seize the opportunity and make this once-in-a-lifetime wish. What's the matter? Looking at the rules, Yunshi wondered if he had read a fake banned book. Why are the rules so romantic? Isn't that a horrible ruin? Can the horrible queen, the master of the black axe monsters, have such a girl's heart? Can it be real? What went wrong? Yunshi turned the last book over and over again, wondering who was kidding him. Compared with the previous bloody banned books, this book was so sweet that it was almost as pure as a fairy tale. Not only so, but there were also notes about this incredible bridal sacrifice in the books, which were from the girls who experienced the sacrifice. Ah, why? Why does the ghost bride whose initial is T run so fast? I almost caught it, but it suddenly teleported away? No, I'll never give up hope until the last moment. To make my love come true, I have to rely on the ghost brides. From an unmarried village girl. The ghost bride whose initial is L doesn't run fast, but as long as it is illuminated, it will disappear into foam. If you want to catch these kind of ghost brides, you'd better go to the cemetery, the underground river, or any other places without light. Very well. My guess was correct. I didn't waste 16 years of hard work, and I finally caught one. My wish has come true. All girls with the same name as me. If you want to realize your wish, please exercise the skill Mind's Eye. From an unknown girl with a bow. There are many kinds of ghost brides, and ghost brides whose initial is W is absolutely the most terrible one. They will pretend to be ordinary girls, crying alone in dark corners. Once they are found, they will make terrible screams, shock your soul, and destroy your spirit. If you want to capture Ghost Bride W, you must have an iron will to resist the scream before you have the chance to take the next step. Don't be deceived by their weak appearance. They are very powerful unknowns. You have to bet all your beliefs in order to get the chance to be favored by the queen. The queen only smiles at the winner. From an unknown night girl. Well, there were even living experiencers who had written strategy guides. If this wasn't anyone kidding around in the banned book, it would mean that the Queen of Assyria was really continuing this sacrifice. She's got way too much free time. She began to think about the truths recorded in the banned book. He still had many doubts, especially about the record of the Blood Month period. How could it be so simple for such a strong queen to be killed by knights and priests? After 300 years of life, the queen obviously surpassed the boundaries of human beings. Even if she was facing an army of millions, she would probably be the one who had the last laugh. How did such a powerful queen get killed by her subordinates? What happened on the night of the blood moon? Why are only black axe monsters hovering around in the ruins now? There are too many mysteries that the banned books could answer. The authors of the banned books seem to have compiled the outline of the tragedy from a few records left over from the ruins and some dictations of the original royal family. What on earth did the queen do? There was no way that the authors could know. There must be unspeakable secrets. She could smell an ominous atmosphere from the records in these banned books. Boom! A tremendous vibration burst out and shattered the bookshelf in front of Shi. Here comes the dragon. It's a dragon attack. Damn the dragon. Mom! She could clearly hear the cry from the city. The ground shook violently, accompanied by some huge roar, as if the end of the world was coming. The evil dragon comes out? She ran out of the library in surprise and looked at the huge yellow figure in the sky from the balcony of the palace. Yes, it was a real dragon with an inverted triangular skull, rough sand-like scales, and spikes on its back. Listen to me, you people of this kingdom. I am Desert Dragon Zaka, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Foolish human beings, haven't you given up hope yet? From the moment my emperor came to this land, this kingdom became my emperor's possession. Little human beings, surrender to my emperor. The desert dragon, whose body was over 50 meters long with bright runes on its scales, roared, stepping on a transparent eggshell-like thing. Countless ripples appeared on the eggshell-like magic shield, reducing the attack from the desert dragon, but there were still a lot of impacts spread to the entire city. The continuous earthquakes were the result of this dragon's attack. What a powerful force! Even across the magic shield, she could feel the dragon's terrible power. Whether in shape or strength, Desert Dragon Zaka was far stronger than the male fiery dragon she encountered before. Its rank should be at the 5th or even 6th rank. Its huge body over 50 meters could easily break up an army even without any magic. Its body was already stronger than many attack magics. Boom, boom, boom. There were 3 more headbutts from the desert dragon, and continuous ripples appeared on the magic shield, and the magic shield flashed as if it was going to break, which caused the people of the city to fall into a great panic. Come and try. She was curious about the dragon's power. Would it be more powerful than the mysterious Queen of Assyria? Stepping on the crane wing's twin swords, Yunshi flew into the sky. Oh, there's a little fly coming out? Zaka cocked its head and glanced at Yunshi, raising its huge claws. Shuffle. That was the scream of a sonic boom in the air when the speed of Yunshi's body exceeded the speed of sound. Today, it was destined to be recorded in the history of the kingdom. This kingdom was built with the desire to guard the ruins, and today, another strong man who dares to challenge the dragon appeared. When people saw the young challenger, they could hardly believe their eyes. Prince. It's our prince. Why is it the prince? Where are the knights? Adds when the desert dragon raised its claws and swung toward Yunshi, it triggered a tornado-like anomaly, and dust storms rolled up all over the ground. As with the name of this dragon, it was the master of the desert. It was the king of sand and dust. Among the 4 heavenly kings, it had the greatest attack range, as well as the indestructible defense, dragon scales. It was not unusual for it to attack the kingdom from time to time. It would like to take a walk after dinner to show off its strength to the people in the city. However, during this walk after dinner, there appeared a little insect that didn't know how to read the mood. It could pat such a small insect into meat sauce with one claw. Facing the dragon's claw directly, Yunshi stepped on the twin swords and rotated around 720 degrees and flew directly from below the dragon's claw to the side of the claw. This skill was practiced in the Forgotten Ruins. In order to avoid the ubiquitous and invisible attacks, he had racked his brains and tried all means. Although he was still killed over 100 times, it was not meaningless to practice this skill. Compared with the invisible attacks, Desert Dragon Zaka's claw attack was too easy to dodge. Seeing Yunshi avoid its claw, Zaka was slightly surprised. How long has it been since I saw people who could fly freely in the sky and avoid my attack? Aren't human beings just some weak insects who only know to hide inside the magic shield that covers the entire city? Without the magic shield, he would have destroyed the city and leveled everything. Else, Desert Dragon Zaka roared. 1, 2, 3, 4. A total of 4 gravel-colored, giant dragon eyes appeared in the east, south, west, and north regions. Each dragon eye was about 4 meters high, suspended in the air, and was surrounded by thick dust. It was a dragon language magic, Sand Dragon's Eye. The 4 dragons' eyes could let it observe the environment without any dead corners, while automatically expanding the area of yellow sand to cover 10 kilometers diameter. In this area of yellow sand, dust storms never stop and would automatically call out a large number of desert monsters. Boom! Giant sandworms over 100 meters in length billowed out of the earth and opened their round mouths. In the huge mouths, there were countless creepy jagged mouthparts and poisonous, corrosive salivas. Undoubtedly, these sandworms were at the hero rank. They were Desert Dragon Zaka's minions. As long as Zaka summoned them, they would appear. For 10 kilometers around Desert Dragon Zaka, the ground had all turned into a desert. It was a phenomenon triggered by the dragon language magic, which was far beyond human imaginations. Strong, Yunshi had a profound experience of the dragon's power. The dragon was apparently not at the hero rank, but hero-ranked human beings could never be a match for it, because hero-ranked human beings could never cause such a phenomenon with their powers. Sandstorm Star. After summoning its minions, Desert Dragon Zaka immediately used another magic. In the endless sandstorms, a huge sand ball more than 1 kilometer in diameter appeared in the sky, in the center of the 4 dragons' eyes. Every second, countless sand grains were sucked into the sandball, increasing the strength of the giant sandball. Its attack power may not be as fatal as the invisible attacks in the ruins, but it was easier to give people an intuitive impression. Such attacks were natural disasters, unavoidable and unstoppable. Stupid human, who gave you the courage to challenge the great desert dragon Zaka? Zaka looked down at Yunshi, and the giant sandball locked on the city. It's time for humans to realize the fear of being dominated by dragons. When the Assyria kingdom still existed, mankind once had a covenant of peace with the dragon race. The dragon race acknowledged the supremacy of Assyria. As long as the queen of Assyria still ruled the kingdom, the dragon would not enter the mainland. But it was already a thing of the past. The queen, who was supposed to rule mankind, had hidden in the forgotten ruins. Human beings had destroyed their most glorious era personally. Now, it is the era of the dragon race. Humans, feel the power of the sandstorm star. Feel the power of the dragon race. Long live my emperor. Fall, sandstorm star. With the pride of the dragon race, the desert dragon raised its head and ordered the giant sandstorm star that had been formed. The huge sandball, which was about 1 kilometer in diameter, began to roll irresistibly towards the city not far away. The transparent eggshell covering the city began to deform, little by little, under the bombardment of the giant sandstorm star. The horrible weight of the sandstorm star was fatal to all magic shields. It could crush almost all magic structures. Just as Zaka was triumphantly preparing to crush the magic shield of the city, its head suddenly suffered a sharp pain. It felt as if a sharp needle had suddenly penetrated its head. With an anguished scream, Zaka couldn't control his magic and the sandstorm star instantaneously and completely disintegrated. The pained desert dragon couldn't even maintain its flying posture. It fell directly from the air and then rolled over on the ground. Bang! Yunshi was blown away by the strong airflow. He could hardly keep his balance on the twin swords and was swept in by the dust storms around him. Yes, its defense isn't unbreakable. It wasn't the Crane Wing's twin swords which hit Zaka's head, but Yunshi's hands. Precisely speaking, it was a fighting skill he learned from teacher Cassina, Soft Water Palm. This was a fighting skill Cassina specially created for her disciples who had the talent of soft body. Only the owner of soft body could use this fighting skill. Dripping water can wear through stone. Just like the waves that wash up on reefs, those waves seem to leave no damage to the reefs, but in fact, the force of water has penetrated the reefs. Hard reefs will eventually be completely worn down by the waves, and soft water palm speeds up this process by tens of millions of times. It was specially created for destroying the internal structures of the creatures who had strong outside defenses. Yunshi recently experimented with its effect with the black axe monsters in the Forgotten Ruins. As a result, the attacks of his hands could easily break through the black axe monsters' bodies. Now, this fighting skill had also worked on Zaka's body as well. As long as he could break through Zaka's defense, he had the possibility of winning. Compared with the invisible weapons in the Forgotten Ruins, Desert Dragon Zaka was stronger, but it was easier to deal with. "You damn little bug." Zaka shook its dizzy head and roared. It staggered to his feet, ready to use the magic sandstorm star again. Yunshi wouldn't let go of his opponent's carelessness. From the battle god seed, countless fighting experiences of Cassina, the battle god, flowed into his brains. They were the experiences of a legend-ranked fighter. Plus Yunshi's own talent, the effect was far better than 1+1. Regarding the twin swords as a point of borrowing strength, Yunshi placed both feet on them with all his strength. Quicksilver motion. Compared with the flying of the twin swords, such a straight line impact was faster and more powerful. The desert dragon had just staggered trying to raise its head. Taking advantage of this, Yunshi stepped on its wing. Boom! His palms bombarded the wing. As if the superphysical and magic defense of the dragon race didn't exist, without reservation, Yunshi's palms tore apart the nerves of the dragon's wing. The desert dragon once again toppled down on the ground and finally had to pay attention to this annoying insect. Even if this human was a small insect, it was a fierce flying insect with sharp teeth. The injury on its head plunged it into vertigo of about 5 seconds. The wound on the wing made one of its wings break completely and lost its ability to fly in the sky. Of course, these injuries were only temporary for the dragon, who had enormous vitality. They could be easily recovered after it used its own healing ability. However, the truth of it was hurt by a small insect itself had represented the abnormality of this small insect. Ordinary human beings, even if it was a hero-ranked human being, couldn't do any harm to a dragon, unless the human was holding a sacred sword or demon sword. Dragon scales were inherently immune to all physical and magical attacks. Even if a dragon was besieged by millions of people, it wasn't possible to hurt the dragon. Yunshi's attack was different. The impact of the soft water palm penetrated the dragon scale directly and directly hit the dragon's weak points straightly. "My minions, kill this little bug," the desert dragon shouted. Boom! Countless sandworms dug out of the ground, and giant scorpions emerged from the dust. Crap! She could see 1, 2, 3 red dots appearing beside him, which were the beacons released by the giant scorpion's deep red tails. In the next second, several dark red rays passed by Shi. Only one of them touched Shi's shoulder, but its damage was powerful, leaving a burning scar on his shoulder. Oh! The sandworms got excited and chirped. Their huge bodies surrounded Shi from all sides, making the situation on the battlefield reverse in an instant. The desert was the home of Desert Dragon Zaka. Above the yellow sand, it was the master of this land. Just one hit, and Shi was plunged into a deadly crisis. How could he survive in such a situation? Shuffle. With a flash of the cold light, a sword cut off the tail of a giant poisonous scorpion without warning. A beautiful white rose bloomed on a sandworm's back, spread out in the next second and blown up the giant sandworm's waist. Shi looked up and saw familiar faces. Xiao Chao's expressionless face, Hua Yu's smiling face, and the faces of all the members of the Starwing Knights. The Starwing Knights were taking part in the war. The Starwing Knights. It's the prince and his knights. We have hope. The appearance of the Starwing Knights greatly inspired the morale of the people in the city. As mortals, they couldn't fight against a real dragon. The only thing they could do was to pray for the prince and the Starwing Knights. Glory, turn into my shield and my sword. In the name of the white golden rose, Starwing Knights, move out. As the owner of one of the noblest bloodlines in the Night God's domain, Hua Yu finally showed the extraordinary power of her white golden rose bloodline. Unlike Xiao Chao, Hua Yu brought together all the forces of the Starwing Knights. The attack that shattered the giant sandworm's body just now was the masterpiece of all the members of the Starwing Knights. The entire Starwing Knights rushed into the battlefield like a storm, showing no fear. This was also the first time that Shi had seen the real combat ability of the Starwing Knights. Defensive formation. White golden shield. After blowing up a giant sandworm, Hua Yu raised the sword in her hand, and all the members of the Starwing Knights were concentrated behind her. All the knights' breath almost merged into one. Several red dots appeared on Hua Yu's body, and then the dark red ray attack reappeared. Shi's heart beat fast. The death ray could kill most hero rank beings in seconds. Could Hua Yu dodge it? Fortunately, the deep red ray was blocked by a transparent shield with white golden color halfway. The shield engraved with the mark of the cross and the rose emblem was precisely a secret art from the Night God's domain. The white golden shield. The white golden shield was shaped by all the strength of the girls of the Starwing Knights. This was the special secret art of the Night God's domain. An excellent leader of the Knights could concentrate all of the force of the Knight members and display all kinds of incredible secret arts. The power of the secret art depends on two factors: the talent and the will of the leader of the Knights. The trust of the members of the Knights for their leader. For the Starwing Knights, both factors were perfect. Hua Yu's talent and will were absolutely first class. She was undoubtedly a genius. The members of the Starwing Knights had 100% confidence in Hua Yu, and among the members of the Starwing Knights, there were special bonds that other people couldn't imagine. With May's blessing, seed, the tacit understanding amongst the girls of the Starwing Knights was enough to make any other knights feel inferior. Raise your swords. Charge. The protection of the white golden shield was almost invincible. Although there was a time limit, it was still a secret art that was enough to subvert the situation on the battlefield. Splash! Another giant poisonous scorpion had its tail cut off and its blood sprayed 10 meters high. It was Xiao Chao, the deputy leader of the Starwing Knights, who killed the scorpion. As one of the few hero-ranked members of the Starwing Knights, Xiao Chao chose to move alone, targeting directly on the giant scorpions that could threaten Shi. Humph! Useless struggles. No matter how many humans there are, humans can't defeat the great desert dragon Zaka. Zaka shook its dizzy head and showed a grim smile. Taste this. Dragon Spirit. It was a unique all-range attack of the dragon, the death declaration for the people who dreamed of slaying dragons. However, before it released this magic, one of Zara's eyes exploded and magic was forced to stop. The breath of blood and death slowly emerged before Zaka. It was Robin, the ominous bird of the Starwing Nights. She didn't attack Zaka's eye, but watched quietly, waiting for this unfortunate fate to happen. Ouch, ouch. The desert dragon tightly covered its eye with its claws. This time it was seriously injured, but it didn't see any attacks aiming at its eyes. It felt like something was wrong inside its eyes. Then its eye exploded itself. Is it a curse? What kind of curse is effective for a dragon? These damn bugs. I was too careless. Huh. While the desert dragon Zaka was distracted by Robin's curse, taking this advantage, She rushed to its head, on the side of the eye that just exploded. Soft water palm. His palm pressed on the exploded eye with full strength. Roar! Under the double attacks and great pains, the desert dragon's huge body fell to the ground and blew up dust from the ground into the sky. Not finished yet. She's hand hit on the desert dragon's wound again. Robin looked at the desert dragon's twitching body and shook her head. Charge! The girls of the Starwing Knights had killed 3 sandworms in succession. They began to speed up and rush towards the desert dragon. I'll be back. The desert dragon realized that if it didn't escape, it would probably be left here forever. It immediately held its head in its claws and displayed its ultimate skill, Desert Dragon's Roll. Its 50 meters long huge body began to roll on the ground. In just a minute, it had rolled away from the sight of she and the girls of the Starwing Knights. The 4 desert dragons' eyes also flew away with their master. The desert disappeared in a twinkling of an eye, and the earth restored to its original color. Its rolls are really fast. She wiped the sweat from his forehead. In fact, he had been exhausted. He couldn't use the soft water palm infinitely. Even with the support of the battle god's seed, his energy and blood were almost exhausted. If the battle continued, he really didn't know if he could still stand up. Before the desert dragon was killed, he would die first. We won. We won. The dragon escaped away. The guards on the walls of the city were the first to shout the glad tidings. With their message, many people hiding in their basements, churches, and even palaces began to walk up the walls and witness the battlefield after the battle between the Starwing Knights and the Desert Dragon. It wasn't until they saw for themselves that the Desert Dragon had left and that there were still mutilated bodies of monsters lying on the ground that they believed that the disaster of the kingdom had finally been diverted. The dragon was completely repulsed. At this moment, nobody cared that the dragon was only one of the 4 heavenly kings, one of the minions of the real dragon. All they knew was that the prince and the Starwing Knights had won. Soon, the cheers rang throughout the sky, and people ran out of the city gate one by one, watching the bodies of giant scarlet scorpions and sandworms. Have we really won? Not only these ordinary people, but the members of the Starwing Knights also showed an incredulous look on their faces. When did they become so strong? Not long ago, many of them were still ordinary first-ranked swordswomen. But now, they could already frighten away a dragon? Yes, we won. Hua Yu showed a confident and sunny smile. How can they win? Because the Starwing Knights trusted a man and had the consciousness of sacrificing their lives to protect him. Their prince was the core that connected all of them together. Any teams with such a firm belief could be strong. Without firm beliefs, in the face of giant sandworms and poisonous scorpions, the number of people was only number. It couldn't be turned into combat power. Only by adhering to their own inner will and willingness to pay all costs for it can the white golden shield shine brightly and let the beautiful rose open. The Starwing Knights will certainly become stronger. 1, 2, 3. Xiao Chao counted the bodies of poisonous scorpions on the ground. As a girl from an ordinary family, careful calculation was her instinct. Before she reached the hero rank, she often didn't have the money to repair her equipment. She used the newbie iron sword for a long time until she joined the Starwing Knights. After joining the Starwing Knights, although she became much richer, the belief that waste is shameful had long been incorporated into her mind. No matter which world she was in, this belief wouldn't change. Well, the body won't disappear. She curiously watched the girls of the Starwing Knights cut off and carry the bodies of giant poisonous scorpions. He found the decisive difference between this battle and the battle in the Forgotten Ruins. In the Forgotten Ruins, the monsters he killed would leave corpses, but these corpses would soon be revived by the mysterious Queen of Assyria. However, the minions of the Desert Dragon didn't seem to have this characteristic. These bodies wouldn't suddenly revive and attack the people nearby them. It seemed that the Desert Dragon didn't have a relationship with the Queen of the Forgotten Ruins. This also meant that the Queen of the Forgotten Ruins was probably stronger than the Desert Dragon Zaka. Maybe she was also one of the 4 Heavenly Kings? If the 4 Heavenly Kings were ranked according to their strength, she felt that Desert Dragon Zaka was probably the weakest. Come on, everybody. The meat of these monsters are useful. Eating them can improve our physiques. Xiao Chao stood on a scorpion's tail and commanded all the members of the Starwing Knights to carry the whole body of the scorpion. At the same time, the palace armies also arrived on the battlefield at last. They cut the giant sandworm's body with ready tools and cut it into hundreds of half-meter chunks of meat. Like what Xiao Chao said, whether in the infinite God's domains or in this world, the bodies of these monsters were rare treasures. Just like no matter how rich you were, you couldn't buy the meat of male fiery dragon. The meat of the sandworms and scorpions couldn't be bought in the mortal world. The taste of the meat was a secondary consideration. The enormous energy contained in the meat was the most important. Even so, the girls of the Starwing Knights were curious about how the monsters tasted. I haven't eaten the meat of a giant sandworm yet. I want to know how it tastes. Isn't this scorpion poisonous? Can its meat be eaten? Well, what's the flavor? Chicken or beef? Ling Ling was deeply troubled. According to the records, the meat of giant sandworms is delicious, and the protein is more than 10 times that of ordinary beef. After eating, our endurance to high temperatures would be strengthened. It's a very rare food ingredient. Because giant sandworms generally live in the desert, hundreds of meters below the ground, it's difficult for humans to find and kill this kind of monster. Their meat is very expensive. Mei Lan recited the knowledge she remembered from books, satisfying the curiosity of other members of the Starwing Knights. Yeah, 10 times better than beef. I thought the roasted veal steak was the best thing in the world. It's great that the meat contains so much protein. My mother always said that my chest flat is because of undernourishment. If I eat the sandworm's meat, can my breasts grow again? Mei Lan, is that the same with the poisonous scorpions? Mei Lan pushed the glasses on her nose and nodded. The scorpion is poisonous, but the poison is confined to the scorpion's tail. Therefore, after we cut off its tail, its meat can be eaten. I heard it tastes like chicken. When the Starwing Knights and the royal army returned to the city, the main road of the city was crowded with people. Many people who saw the spoils of the Starwing Knights and the prince, and they cheered loudly by the road. Long live the prince! Long live the Starwing Knights! Let the evil dragon die! As long as there is our prince and the Starwing Knights, we don't have to be afraid of dragons anymore. Yunshi sighed as he listened to people's excited cheers. It's better not to let people know the truth. Only he knew how terrible the evil dragon's nest was. The master of the Forgotten Ruins, the Queen of Assyria, as long as she was there, even if with the help of the Starwing Knights, he had no hope to break through the Forgotten Ruins, not to mention the dragon's nest. Compared with the Queen of Assyria, Desert Dragon Zaka was just the weakest of the 4 heavenly kings. Moreover, even though the Desert Dragon was defeated by himself and the Starwing Knights, it still didn't show enough terror. If it wasn't for the Starwing Knights, he would have been defeated and would have to watch the dragon destroying the city. The Dragon War had only opened its prelude. Prince, are you worried about our fighting capacity? The Bloody Robin appeared again behind the worried Yunshi. Unlike the blindly optimistic people, she also saw the tragic future of the kingdom by observing Desert Dragon Zaka's life trajectory. Even though the Starwing Knights had unlimited potential, that potential was still just potential, and it would take time for them to become stronger and stronger. But now, this kingdom had no time to wait for the Starwing Knights to grow up. As a palace augur and a member of the Starwing Knights, like Yunshi, she was aware of the crisis for the future of the kingdom. Yes, The Starwing Knights are not strong enough to break through the Forgotten Ruins. Do you have any ideas? She looked at the mysterious augur with a glimmer of hope in his heart and his eyes. In the battle before, Robin's damage to the desert dragon was the greatest. Even she didn't find out how she blew out one of Desert Dragon Zaka's eyes. It can be said that Robin had made the greatest contribution to the battle before. The future can be changed. There is only one hope for the kingdom. Prince, come with me. Robin used the magic unknown realm and disappeared with she from the parade, leaving the Starwing Knights. Oh, they sneaked away. Ling Ling noticed their disappearance and muttered with dissatisfaction. She's supposed to discuss the next plan with the prince. Why you chose to believe in Robin? Inside the palace, in Yunshi's room, under the ceiling engraved with the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, Robin opened a map half the size of a person. Prince, do you really want to defeat the dragon and save the kingdom? Robin needed to identify this problem before she explained her plan. All subsequent plans must be based on this premise. If Yunshi didn't like this idea and have a fearless will, there was no way that they could accomplish the plan. Yes, I must defeat the dragon. I have to win. This was the main quest of this trial. It must be accomplished in any case. What would happen if he failed to accomplish the main quest? Yunshi dared not think about it. His instincts told him that it must be a terrible thing. Well, let's look at this mark on the map first. Robin nodded. Yes, that was the will. Having a firm will may not be the necessary condition for victory, but it was absolutely a great advantage. Those who had no confidence in themselves were not qualified to be favored by the goddess of victory. Yunshi looked closely at the map. It was the world map of this trial world. On the map, the area in the eastern half-corner was marked by sword and shield, and a castle pattern was erected in the center of the area. Undoubtedly, this was the only human kingdom on this continent. After the collapse of the Assyrian kingdom, this kingdom was the last fortress and hope of mankind. This area was marked in white. In contrast, the central part of the mainland, from the most central to the north and western regions, were all marked in dark red. The center of the region was a mysterious place surrounded by ruins with a dragon-shaped imprint. Dragon's Nest? This was Yunshi's ultimate goal. The evil dragon already occupies 2/3 of the continent. Yunshi didn't expect that the only continent of this trial world had long ceased to belong to human beings. Compared with the land dominated by the evil dragon, human beings were simply hanging on with the last of life in the border area. Yes, it's no problem to say that the continent has been ruled by the evil dragon. But, Prince, take a closer look at the southern area. Robin took Yunshi's hand and led him to a strange place. It wasn't the white of the kingdom, nor the red of the evil dragon. It was red and white. Why are there white and red here? Yunshi looked at the unknown area in surprise. Because this region has both the remnants of human beings and the forces of the evil dragon. It is the only region on the mainland that is still in a war. Are humans fighting dragons in this region? Looking at the red and white color, Yunshi had a vague intuition. He felt as if there was something calling him. Yes, they haven't lost yet, because they have special tactics and means to fight the dragon. They are not like our kingdom, because they are the people who inherited the civilization of the ancient Assyrian kingdom and choose witches as their religion. Prince, you must obtain the special power of witches. Only in this case will you have the hope to overcome the Forgotten Ruins. Only they know how to face the dead queen of Assyria, because they are the cursed twins who inherited the last blood of the ancient Assyrian kingdom, the twin witches of fate. The twin witches, the witches of fate. Without thinking, Yunshi could guess who the twin witches were. White Lotus and Red Lotus. The side quest, the legendary witches, was exactly tailored for them. Yes, Prince, if you want to defeat the evil dragon, they are indispensable people. But before that, there's one more important thing to do. Robin's face looked serious. That's the most serious problem in the kingdom right now. What's more serious than the evil dragon? Yunshi looked at the mysterious palace augur in confusion. That's naturally your identity, my prince. Robin picked up a crystal ball in her hand. Her face was covered by her bright red cloak, and the atmosphere became strange in an instant. My identity. Am I not the prince of this kingdom? Yunshi remembered that this was the setting of this star trial. Judging from the fact that the Starwing Knights were trusted by the people of the city and people's worship to him, he was indeed the prince of this kingdom in people's hearts. Yes, you are undoubtedly our prince, and this is the biggest problem. Because, my prince, you are only a prince now. Like speaking a tongue twister, Robin said the biggest problem. I'm a prince. What's wrong with this? Yunshi became more and more confused. My prince, it means that you are not the most powerful person in this kingdom. That is to say, you are only the successor of this kingdom. The real master of this kingdom is not you, but the king. Robin pointed out the key point. I have a father? Only then did Yunshi realize what Robin meant. Indeed, if he is a prince, it means that there is a king in this kingdom. In the past, he always fought alone, so it didn't matter what the background setting was. However, compared with the previous trials, his identity in this trial seemed to be somewhat different. Yes, the king has been ill for a long time. My prince, you are only performing the king's duties to administer the kingdom. This is a problem that must be solved. The Bloody Robin had witnessed countless human tragedies, however, she must say this. She sighed and continued, the king is not an incompetent king, but it's not his time now. My prince, it's time for you to make a decision. Decision? What decision? Yunshi still didn't understand what Robin hinted. We are facing the evil dragon's threat. We need you, but we don't need a sick king. My prince. Robin looked at Yunshi in peace. Hasn't the prince understood it yet? He is an excellent prince and the hope of the kingdom's future. Compared with the old king, he is the real master of this kingdom. Now, facing the enormous threat of the evil dragon, he must truly ascend the throne and become the righteous master of the kingdom. For this reason, the best solution is to let the long-disqualified king disappear. From the trajectory of fate, she saw the future of this kingdom, in which the old king didn't have a place. No, I don't have that plan. Eventually, Yunshi realized what Robin's hint was. He was neither able to cry or laugh. He was the prince of this kingdom, but it was just a setting. Although the king could only play a mascot of this kingdom, there was no need to kill him. What he did was to find a way to kill the evil dragon, not to play a royal theater called patricide. By the way, Robin, are you really not playing the role of a villainess? What a third-rate script your suggestion is. My prince, you are a kind man, but the world is not as beautiful as you think. Robin shook her head and said something to Yunshi's surprise. Go and see the king. Maybe you can understand why I suggested that. That king has gone the wrong way. No matter how hard Yunshi thought, he couldn't remember a thing about the king. For him, the king's sense of existence wasn't stronger than the trees in the dark forest. How could he remember the shape of a random tree in the dark forest? But according to Robin's proposal, he still came to the garden where the king was supposed to convalesce. It doesn't look very good. What Yunshi saw was doctors in black long clothes with beak-like masks on their faces. They were busy shuttling through the garden. In the air, there was an overwhelming smell of medicines. Pafu. The emerald jelly came out of Yunshi's chest and made an uncomfortable sound. Ga. Doctors in black clothes looked at Yunshi with lifeless eyes and made a threatening voice. I am the prince. Yunshi had to declare his identity. Ga. The doctor's eyes turned red. I am the prince. Yunshi declared his identity again. He was the successor of this kingdom and the current regent. Although this was just a setting, it should be useful in this trial world. Ga. There were crows crying, and more doctors in black clothes appeared, looking at Yunshi with bloody eyes. No, the script is wrong. Why do they have that bloody smell? Yunshi smelled that the doctors in black clothes had exactly the same smell as those black axe monsters in the Forgotten Ruins. Ga. Under the black beak-like masks, one sharp mouth after another opened, showing a chilling expression. Sickle. Fork. Jigsaw. Those doctors in black took out something that should never be used by doctors one by one and surrounded Yunshi. They looked so enthusiastic, like some hospitable hosts who were welcoming the most honored visitor had finally arrived at the door. You're looking for your own death. She noticed a bonfire in the middle of the garden, which looked so familiar. This meant that this area was the same as the Forgotten Ruins. It was a barrier he had to break through. Recalling Robin's hint, she had no doubt who the ultimate boss of this area is. Damn it, why is her prediction so accurate? Now he really had to be the protagonist of a third-rate royal theater of patricide. Ding! The crane wing's twin swords circled in the air, turning into two flying streamers above the battlefield, which was originally a garden. Bang! A doctor in black's whole body exploded. You are dead. Who took away his palm. He didn't even look at the doctor in black and sheathed the crane wing's twin sword. After being blown up, the doctor in black slowly stood up in an eerie manner. It was clear that his heart had been pierced, but the hole in his heart was being filled up with black granules. This was a kind of parasite that She didn't know, parasitizing on the human body. It could greatly increase the vitality of the body and could even repair fatal injuries. However, in the face of She's soft water palm, these parasites could do less use. Before the dense granulations could repair the monster's heart, they had all suddenly burst into a blood stain. She's soft water palm could even break Desert Dragon Zaka's defense. How could these parasites withstand it? Shuffle. The twin swords drew smooth tracks in the air and 3 black doctor monsters' heads had been cut off. After losing their heads, these monsters didn't die immediately but exposed their true faces. It was a black wireworm that emerged from the wound on the neck and replaced the function of the cut-off head. Why are there these disguising parasites in the garden? She looked at these weird monsters in a very bad mood. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Here came that sound again, the whisper of death. Wasn't this the patent of the Queen of Assyria? The monster whose head was replaced by black wireworms fell completely into a state of insanity after hearing the sound, rushing madly towards She. As I said, you're looking for your own death. She took a long breath and put his hands up and down on his right side. Unlike the soft water palm he just used, this time, he was going to use a rigid body skill Cassina taught him. Boom, 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 boom. The deafening sound of blood flew in She's body and resounded in his ears, like the torrent of rivers and like the surging of waves. At this moment, the blood in She's body was flowing 10 times faster than that of ordinary people. Only with a diamond-like unbreakable body, a human could withstand this rigid body skill and not commit suicide. Its name, Thunderbolt. Gathering all the chi of his body into his hands, a ball of incandescent rotating light emerged. As if thunder was exploding, a circle of shock waves was released and all the black monsters around She were blown away, and then the light ball in She's hand flew out. Boom, boom, boom. The light ball turned into a continuous burst of light circles, blasting all the monsters in front of She into pieces. No matter how strong their self-healing power was, after being blasted to ashes, there was no way they could revive. Soft water palm embodied the destructive power of soft. Thunderbolt demonstrated the destructive power of rigid. Only a freak, who had both rigid body and soft body, could master these two super fighting skills before even reaching the hero rank. After releasing the Thunderbolt, She took a deep breath. Anyone who saw the power of Thunderbolt would be shocked, including She himself. This was the first time that he had really used the rigid body skill he learned on the battlefield, and the result was apparently outstanding. Compared with the silent and lethal attacks of the soft body, the attacks of the rigid body were all straight and fierce. Well, soft body skills are suited for one-on-one fights, and rigid body skills are suited for battlefields. She had more insight into the characteristics of his body. The two physiques were distinct, but once he could combine the two physiques together, their effect opened up a new world for him. However, She was still far from combining the rigid body and the soft body together. Whether it was the soft water palm or the Thunderbolt, he could only use them separately. After about 90% of the members were eliminated by She's Thunderbolt, he quickly wiped out the remaining doctors in black by the twin swords. These doctors in black were apparently weaker than the black axe monsters in the Forgotten Ruins. The black parasites in their bodies gave them strong power and fast speed, but they didn't grant them killing skills. If the black axe monsters were elites, then these doctors in black were just the weakest monsters she had ever seen. Did I start in the wrong order? Looking at the monsters, she began to suspect that he had used the wrong strategy to pass this trial. Basing on the difficulty, obviously, this garden was a novice area, and the Forgotten Ruins was the final area where the ultimate boss was. Ah, you're here. A hysterical voice echoed in the dark garden. My unfilial son. Well, she thought that he knew who the master of the voice was. Why? Why did I give birth to such a rebellious son like you? I am the king of this kingdom. I'm the supreme ruler. The king roared. From his voice, she couldn't feel any traces of ill. Your Majesty, are you really sick? Aren't you full of spirits? I curse you. You animal. How dare you want to kill your father and marry your mother? Wait, what kind of crime is this? I didn't do anything. You are slandering me. Even a third-rate novelist doesn't write such a story nowadays. You must die. You and the Starwing Knights you formed will be buried by me. This kingdom is my kingdom, my thing. The king who should have died long ago shouted with a voice so loud that Yunshi wondered if he was really sick. I'm sorry, but I don't want to do so. Yunshi had no will to be such a prince. He was coming to fight the dragon, not to play in this family ethics drama. The identity prince was worthless in his eyes. No matter how Robin advised him to murder the king and ascend to the throne of the kingdom, Yunshi himself wasn't interested in it at all. But that's what he thought, not what the king thought. I should have strangled you in the cradle when you were born. It was the greatest mistake of my life to have pity on you for the death of your humble mother. I shouldn't have left you at that knight's house and let him raise you. Was there such a setting? My real mother is dead. Although it was only the background of the trial, Yunshi still felt a little sad to hear it. Hey, this really is a standard family ethics drama. But if my mother was dead, what did she mean to kill your father and marry your mother? I won't give her to you. She's mine. She's mine. Even if I'm in the coffin, I'll climb out and stop you. Grant me the power of eternal life, great God. The king fell into a frenetic and prayed to an ancient existence. Wow, this is... Yunshi smelled the same thing again. That invisible thing in the Forgotten Ruins. Hiss, hiss, hiss. It seemed to be a soft, twittering sound, and it seemed to be the sound of bubbles breaking out of the deep sea. From the deepest part of the garden inside the palace, there came with a creepy whisper. Arf, that's it, that's the power. My unfilial son, you can never take away my kingdom and marry my bride. The king roared with great excitement, making a deafening roar. The sky became dark, and a bloody crescent moon revealed half of its body. Crescent moon? Yunshi looked at the weather worsening and recalled the huge red moon he saw in the Forgotten Ruins. Jie, Jie, Jie. Under the bloody moon, more crow doctors poured out of the garden. Their eyes turned red and their moves became more hospitable. They went berserk? Yunshi was too familiar with this situation. Crane wings, twin swords. Let's fly. Soft water palm. Even though these doctors' strengths were strengthened 3 times after going berserk, they were still nothing in Yunshi's eyes. Apart from their exuberant vitality, they had nothing good. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. The crane wings, twin swords flying over the crow doctors' heads. Every time the sword flashed, there would be a head flying into the sky and bursting out a pile of parasites. Bang, bang, bang. Every attack of the soft water palm would blow up a bunch of such black parasites, ensuring that none of the doctors could revive. Kill, 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 kill. With the support of the battle god seed, Yunshi killed hundreds of doctors within just a dozen seconds. Yunshi didn't even leave a corpse of the doctors, not even a living parasite. Stepping in a pool of blood, Yunshi entered the palace, which used to be the core of the whole kingdom. But now, under the shining of the bloody crescent moon, the palace looked as if it had been smeared by some kind of internal organs, giving off a foul odor. Looking carefully, There were obvious biological lines on the walls, which were like living intestines, liver, and lung mixed together. Anyone could see at a glance that the owner of this palace had completely degenerated. "You're here at last. Come to kill me and rob me of my most precious treasure. Come on, I'll kill you with my own hands." The king's voice became hoarse. Just listening to it, She could smell the breath of the abyss. She shook his head. That was what happened. The king he had never seen before was hopeless. Stepping on the floor of the most magnificent palace in the kingdom, the plants on both sides of the corridor were all turned into black and weird vines, which made him feel creepy, let alone the vines were still alive. Walking into this palace was like entering the interior of a terrifying creature. The deeper She walked inside, the more disgusted he felt. It even gave him a delusion that he was moving further into the abyss. Perhaps this was not a delusion, because the owner of this palace had completely deviated and entered the darkest world. A few minutes later, stepping on the blood of crow doctors, She finally saw the man who was supposed to be his father in this world. The king who guards the kingdom is the king who inherits the blood of ancient knights. However, no one could believe that this king was once a good king. No, it was even hard to believe that the king was a living person. Sitting on that iron throne was a living corpse. The visible part of his skin was as dry and weak as a corpse that had been dried for decades. On his head, he wore a metal cage-like weird decoration. Only the knight's armor on his body, as well as the stick beside him, still retained a trace of the past fair and incorrupt king. At this moment, there was only jealousy and madness on his withered face. "My son, are you finally coming to kill me?" Well, his persecutory delusion is hopeless. "Your Majesty, you really do like to play the family ethics drama too much." I have no interest in the throne. Although Shi knew that the king was already hopeless, he still thought that he needed to clarify this. "Oh, I know you don't like the throne." Surprisingly, the king seemed to know that Shi didn't care about the throne. "But you want my queen. She's so charming, so perfect. She's mine. Nobody can take her away from me. Especially you. You bastard. I know you want to kill me and marry her." Hey, I don't even know who the queen is. Don't accuse me of this. In this world, I will never do any things unrelated to slaying the evil dragon. Her snow-white skin, her smart eyes, her lovely, innocent appearance. I fell in love with her at first sight. I love her more than anyone else. You want to steal her from me? Then I will kill you first." A great deal of black air rose from the king, and the sacred knight armor began to take on an ominous color. "I curse you. Curse why you are so young, so energetic. My kingdom, my queen, are all mine. I will never give them to you. Unforgivable, unforgivable, unforgivable. Accept the judgment from the king, the sinner who wants to kill his father and marry his mother." The king stood up. The long withered body was infected by some weird breath and became strong and powerful again. Black parasites swam out of his corpse-like eyes, declaring that the king had become a real monster. When he was still alive, he was a real hero-ranked knight. Now, infected by strange forces, he had stepped further into an unknown field. He has a set of god weapons. He is a strong enemy. This was what the battle god seed told Shi. The contaminated armor and stick were the parts of the set of god weapons, Sacred Revenge. It was the legacy of the first king of the kingdom and had been handed down from generation to generation to protect the kingdom. After thousands of years, it had been recognized by the people of the kingdom as a powerful god weapon. When the king was still a human, he was not just a king but also a famous knight. This was the characteristic of the kingdom. Every king would inevitably inherit the sacred revenge and watch the ruins of the Assyrian kingdom. However, the last watcher, the master of the sacred revenge himself, had degenerated. Because of this, the sacred revenge also lost its glory and became a dark-type god weapon. Gaining back his power, the king jumped into the air and struck the stick down at Shi. The black stick smashed on the ground, causing the ground to break. The rippling shock wave even smashed the wall several dozen meters away. The position directly hit by the stick collapsed suddenly and became an area covered by ominous black air. Too fast. Yuanxi barely dodged the attack and his heart started to beat fast. After being infected, the king was really strong. Huh. The king bent his right leg and gave Yuanxi a side kick. Bang! Yuanxi's body twisted unnaturally, which avoided the heavy kick. It was the characteristic of the soft body. Huh. The king once again kicked Yuanxi's waist. Hey, you're a knight. Why don't you use your stick? You're only relying on your foot? Unexpectedly, Yuanxi couldn't avoid a kick and had to withstand the kick. Huh. The king kicked again. Bang! Yuanxi's soft water palm punched the king's leg again. His soft water palm could stun a dragon, but caused no effect on the king's black leg. He did hit the king's leg, but after penetrating into the king's body, he couldn't find anything to destroy. Yuanxi felt as if his palm hit on a decayed coffin with nothing inside. Huh. The king was totally unaffected by Yuanxi's soft water palm and stretched out his leg, and Yuanxi was forced to take a step back. Undoubtedly, the king's kick skill had been practiced to the limit. Huh. The king's sidekick seemed to never stop, giving Yuanxi no chance to take a break. In this case, Yuanxi's soft water palm completely lost any effects, and he could only rely on the characteristics of the rigid body to bear the hurt. Your kicks just don't stop? Hum? Then I'll kick too. Taste my side kick. Huh. Side kick. Huh. Side kick. Only then did Yuanxi and the king reveal a style that seemed to be closely related. Foot versus foot. Rigid body versus sacred revenge. After a while, both of them realized that if this continued, neither of them could take any advantages. They changed their skills almost at the same time. Aha! The king swung up his stick and roared. 3 black, turtle shell-like obscurities appeared above his head. Taste this. Thunderbolt. Yuanxi rolled back, put his hands up and down, and breathed in as much air as he could. A strong whirlpool of air diffused around Yuanxi, continuously releasing the unique aura of the rigid body. Gathering the strength of his whole body to a point, Yuanxi released a thunderbolt from his hands without hesitation. Yuanxi wondered if it was his delusion, because he saw a contemptuous smile on the king's withered face. A burning flash burst in the middle of the palace, and the 3 turtle shells that rotated above the king's head disappeared at the same time. In the next second, Yuanxi was blown up by the rebounding thunderbolt's shock wave and was stunned. Taking this advantage, the king jumped up with a heavy blow, slapping his palm on Yuanxi's body. Boom! Numerous black waves of light burst on Yuanxi's body. He spat a mouthful of blood. Even his rigid body couldn't withstand the horrible destructive force. As the ground exploded again, Yuanxi's body together with the twin swords was bombed into the ground, suffering the greatest damage since the battle with the king. But it wasn't the end. My body can't move? Yuanxi found that his body was full of unidentified forces similar to electric current, resulting in a short period of spasms throughout his body. He remembered the introduction of the sacred revenge he saw in the library. The sacred revenge had 2 parts. The sacred stick could release the thunder of judgment and wipe out all darkness. The revenge armor could absorb any attack and reflect it 200%. Yuanxi finally knew how he lost. His thunderbolt was rebounded by the king's revenge armor and increased by 200%. Even he himself couldn't withstand thunderbolt after it was increased by 200%. Hiss! 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 Unknown whispers hovered around Yuanxi's ear, and the king raised his hand with one hand. He first flew to the sky, and the next second he fell like a meteorite. Knight's martial art, justice judgment. The fierce impact from the sky hit Yuanxi accurately, penetrated his internal organs, and turned his whole person into ashes and rose all over the sky. This was the fatal blow from the angry king, the justice judgment from a father. Besides the bonfire in the garden, it's really tough. Yuanxi gazed at the burning bonfire and listed the mistakes he had made. First of all, he looked down upon the king's battle power. Although it looked like a corpse, it was definitely a corpse that was more powerful than the black axe monsters in the Forgotten Ruins. Secondly, he neglected the power of the sacred revenge. It could release the thunder of judgment and paralyze the target's body. Rebound all damage by 200%. Although the king had degenerated and the sacred revenge had been contaminated by the power of darkness, but the god weapon's power wasn't being weakened at all. Finally, the power that led to the king's degeneration. His body looked like a corpse, but had essentially been eroded by unknown black substances. There was no flesh and blood beneath the skin of the corpse. It seemed that human nature had disappeared from the king. When Yunshi's soft water palm penetrated into the king's body, he felt as if he was hitting on a statue with numerous holes. Soft water palm could do no harm to the king's body. Thunderbolt would be rebounded by the king's sacred revenge. Maybe the king had weaknesses when he was still a human, but now he was completely invincible. Is he really invincible? Remembering the feeling when his soft water palm hit on the king's body, Yunshi wondered. Maybe the king still had memory and wisdom. Yunshi felt that the seemingly infatuated king had embarked on the road of no return. The power of the abyss was devouring his life. The king now was like a torch burning his soul, releasing the last light of his humanity. It was such a crazy and powerful king that Yunshi would defeat. Give it a try. Once again, with the crane wing's twin swords, Yunshi stepped into the demon's palace. Jie, Jie, Jie. Among the screams of crow doctors, Yunshi once again went inside the palace, which had been covered by endless internal organs. Sitting high on the iron throne, the living corpse stood up again. You're here, my unfilial son. Accept your father's verdict. This time, Yunshi carefully looked at the king's face. It wasn't his delusion. The darkness in the king's eyes had increased, and the black paradises shuttling through the empty eye sockets had become more vivid. The knight's shining armor was turning into the same color as the surrounding internal organs, and the stick representing the supreme power of the kingdom was shining black runes. Sacred had lost. Only revenge remained. Bomb. Without any words, the degenerated king charged towards Yunshi again. Sidekick. Sidekick. The two chose the same skills. Rigid body versus sacred revenge. The scene before was repeated. Relying on his rigid body, Yunshi didn't fear the king's sidekick at all. Since the soft water palm can do no damage, then why don't I try to use pure strength? Lava breathing? Lava skin? Iron blood? Yunshi didn't need to learn these at all, because he himself was a rigid body, an ultimate fantasy. This was the first time that Yunshi really and truly applied this talent after he obtained it. Obviously, the opponent this time had the characteristics that were strong enough to compete with his rigid body. Although the king's wisdom, humanity, and even memory were failing, the degenerated king was indeed one of the strongest opponents Yunshi had ever encountered. Without human flesh and blood, his weaknesses as a human had also disappeared. He was more powerful and terrible than when he was a hero-ranked human knight. In some sense, the king was a monster-like opponent. No matter how he obtained the strange power and how long he could maintain it, power was still power. Yunshi couldn't make the battle become easier. This was a match of strength and strength. Boom, boom, boom. It sounded not like a battle between human beings, but rather like a natural disaster, an earthquake, or a volcanic explosion. This was the battle between two monsters. Like a blazing flame burning, like a wild thunder running, like the dry earth roaring, like a whistling storm raging. Rigid bodies symbolized the most original and violent force in the world. Carry all before one. Because the rigid body itself was the strongest and hardest substance in the world. What just hurt Yunshi's rigid body wasn't the blow of the sacred stick, but Yunshi's own thunderbolt. The king's armor of revenge could bound back everything, but it needed a special ceremony to launch it. The three revolving black, turtle-shell-like, unknown objects were the signals of the launch of the king's sacred revenge. Apparently, Yunshi wouldn't step into the same trap again. Haha. The king used the sacred revenge again, showing a mysterious smile on his face. I won't be defeated by the same skill twice. Yunshi changed from the rigid body to the soft body. This process took a little time, but since the king was using the sacred revenge, he naturally couldn't take this advantage to attack Yunshi. With clever footsteps, Yunshi didn't retreat, but directly dashed towards the king and entwined his arms around the king's neck. Sacred Revenge could rebound all attacks, but it was only a linear reflection. If he was strangled to death, the Sacred Revenge could do no use to save his life. With both hands pressing on the king's head, Yunshi turned over in the air and rode on the king's neck. It looked like a children's play he rides, but it was actually a true game of death. As long as the king showed a little careless, Yunshi's legs could strangle him to death. With a twist of his waist, Yunshi displayed the death-strangling skill that only humans who had soft body could perform, pulling the king's body down to the ground. Gee! The king's neck was twisted into a strange shape. Even his powerful force couldn't break away from the deadly strangulation. Instead, it became an assist force for the strangulation. If the king was still a human, the strangulation was enough to kill him. The three revolving, turtle shell-like objects disappeared, and the time for the skill Sacred Revenge had passed. The king got up in rage and lifted up the stick in his hand. The stick emitted the sound of thunder, the sound of verdict. Go! Yunshi's body turned over in the air and stepped on the palace's ceiling. Switch the soft body to the rigid body. Boom! With the king's stick as the center, innumerable lights burst apart and exploded. Yunshi had switched the soft body to the rigid body. He stepped on the ceiling with both feet and put his hands in an up-and-down position. Oh! The Sacred Revenge entered its cool-down time. You can't use it now. Then take this. Thunderbolt. The same sound of thunder echoed. Only one side relied on the strength of a god weapon, and the other side relied on the power of the battle god seed. Countless electric currents broke out, and the pillars that supported the palace fell one after another. In the continuous explosions, one figure was blown up into the sky, while the other figure was bombed into the underground. Cough! It's still beyond imagination. Yunshi crawled up from the ruins of the palace. This time, his thunderbolt wasn't bounced back, but he was directly hit by the king's sacred verdict and his body was paralyzed for more than 3 seconds. If he was an ordinary hero-ranked being, he'd have been killed 10 times. The king was far stronger than the crow doctors. I won't admit it. I won't let you have her. She's mine. Mine. From the ruins of the palace came the Mad King's roar. More black air was rising from the palace's underground. I sacrifice my legs, the great thing. Give me more power. Yunshi frowned. His thunderbolt indeed hit the king's legs just now, but under the protection of the armor, the king's legs shouldn't have been broken. Why do you sacrifice your legs so simply? Is that queen that I haven't seen really so important? The blood moon shed a hazy moonlight to the king's body in response to the Mad King's call. Arf! The king howled even more wildly and crawled out of the ruins. As he crawled, the armor on his feet began to be corroded and eventually turned into dust by a great stream of black air. She could even see one black hole after another appeared on the king's gray-black body, as if an invisible flame was burning his body. After losing his legs, the king didn't weaken but became more powerful. Even the size of his body was incredibly growing, from about 1 meter tall to 5 meters tall. Now he looked like a giant, and his body was still growing. Yes, that's the power. That's the power that even demons would feel fear. That's the power of gods. The king was intoxicated with this immense power. The black paradises in his empty orbit became more and more vigorous, in sharp contrast to his withered body. The armor of revenge, which once represented the glory of the kingdom, was peeled off bit by bit from the king's body, symbolizing that the last knight of the kingdom had fallen completely and wasn't even qualified to wear the armor Sacred Revenge. The sacred stick, which represented the glory and power of the kingdom, had also changed from the shape of a stick to the shape of a sword stained with black flames. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.